On sickness benefits, is he right to do so? On Cross Question, Green Party Deputy Leader Rachel Millward, businessman Kieran Fothergill, Labour London Assembly member Leonie Cooper, and former Conservative member of that same Assembly Tony Devonish. And at 9, why are 2-year-olds exposed to so much screen time, and what should parents do about it?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 7 o'clock, firefighters are continuing to battle a wildfire threatening the French city of Bordeaux before more extreme heat hits later this week. More than 200,000 people have had to leave their homes. Fires are also continuing to rage in Spain. Dr. Theodore Keeping is a wildfire scientist at Imperial College London.
We've got this extremely flammable landscape across Western Europe, and these fires are spreading much, much faster, where the updraft kind of forms its own weather and that wind propels the fire onwards.
In the UK, firefighters are still tackling a fire in Scotland's Cairngorms National Park. The Prince and Princess of Wales say their thoughts are with everyone affected by wildfires in France, Spain and the UK. At least 5 people have died after getting into difficulty in water this weekend. It's as the UK prepares for a 4th possible heatwave this week, with heat health alerts in some parts of England upgraded to amber. They'll come in from 9 a.m. on Wednesday for the East Midlands, East of England, South East and London. Andy Burnham says the UK is with Ukraine 100% after welcoming Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian president has become the first international leader to visit since the new Prime Minister took office a week ago. A funeral director from Hull has apologised after being convicted of multiple charges of fraud. 48-year-old Robert Bush spoke briefly outside Hull Crown Court before his sentencing hearing began. He's previously admitted 67 offences, including preventing a lawful and decent burial. LBC's Alex Taylor-Brown has more from Hull Crown Court. Some of the details are distressing.
Well, the prosecution said that Bush breached trust on an industrial scale. The funeral home on Hazel Road was described as dirty and unkempt. Some bodies had been there since April 2023. 2 of those, Norman Bridger and Raymond Darnell, who we've heard about today, were found in the clothes that they'd died in. Humberside Police say the damage Bush has caused has been irreparable, one of the most traumatic experiences anyone can go through. The sentencing here at Hull Crown Court is due to last 5 days.
And Girl Guides have changed its uniform for the first time since 1990, saying members will be able to express their own style. Only a top from the 30-item range needs to be worn to be considered in uniform. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed up 45 points at 10,781. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.16. LBC weather, heavy rain moves into the north tonight. Elsewhere, some light rain with clearer skies in the far southeast, a low of 9. Rain will clear in the northeast tomorrow, followed by heavy showers. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunshine and cloud and feeling warmer, highs of 29 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 3 minutes past 7 on LBC. I'm Iain Dale, here with you until 10. Now, if you're watching on the LBC app, Global Player, or the LBC YouTube channel, can I immediately apologise for the shirt that I'm wearing today? It's wholly inappropriate to wear on a broadcast programme, but it's very hot, isn't it? So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Bethany Dawson, on the other hand, sitting next to me, is looking resplendent in her, what is it?
A blouse, a chic blouse, right. I would offer.
We will come to her in just a moment, but let me first introduce what we're going to be talking about over the course of the next 55 minutes. Andy Burnham, believe it or not, he's now in his second week as Prime Minister. Yes, we haven't had a new Prime Minister for a week. It's that second week syndrome. So he's announcing some more policies this week. And today he's been talking about welfare reform. He's done an interview where he said that he wants to effectively crack down on sickness benefits, particularly to young people. Now, I don't see this as an attack on young people, but it does seem to me incongruous that you can be on PIP and basically having a higher income than somebody who is working. The benefit system was never designed to be like that. And when you look at the amount of money that is going to have to be spent on social care, he's going to be talking about that on Wednesday. We all know that's a bottomless pit at the moment. We all know that we've got to spend more money on defence spending. Now, there are all sorts of different ways that you can raise that money, but the welfare budget is about £333 billion a year. So no one can tell me that you cannot make some cuts in that budget. So the overarching question I'm going to ask you this hour, it's a fairly general one, is are we too generous in our welfare benefits system? And how can we make it more sustainable for the long term? Because that £330 billion figure is going to rise to over £400 billion by 2030. That's a third of public spending. That is unsustainable, isn't it? So what do you think should be done? If you're on benefits, I want to hear from you. I'm not intending this to be a phone-in that slags off people who are on benefits. Absolutely not. But I think we all know that there are areas of the welfare system where some money could be saved. What are those areas? Obviously, I don't want to cut anybody's benefit if they're in genuine need. The welfare state was created to help people in genuine need. But what is genuine need? Because all of us will probably have a different way of defining that, won't we? 0345 6060 973. Bethany Dawson is here, LBC's political correspondent. Now, Bethany, Keir Starmer, in some ways lost power, partly because of what happened with winter fuel payments, which was a benefit. Labour MPs are not going to be very happy when they're reading articles in their newspapers about his plans for benefit cuts.
Andy Burnham's sort of political mission to tackle benefits in whatever way he chooses to is going to be one of the biggest challenges in his time. I mean, I do feel like we often say X thing is going to be his biggest challenge, whether it is defence, but welfare is certainly going to be up there, specifically because, as you say, it's such a contentious issue around with his own MPs. But I thought today he struck a really interesting tone. He's spoken more than he has before about benefits. He repeated the line that he said to Andrew Marr on LBC, saying that he would not make crude welfare cuts, obviously suggesting that the cuts suggested by Keir Starmer were indeed crude, but rather he spoke about increasing the conditions on which people would need to meet to receive benefits, and sort of suggested that he would offer opportunities for people out of work if they are able to work, and if they don't take those opportunities, then there may be discussions for benefits being limited. He specifically was speaking a lot about young people. We know that there is a real crisis of young people being out of work. More than 1 million young people are NEETs, not in education, employment or training. And the author of the review into youth inactivity has really slammed the government and previous governments for the treatment of young people, saying the government now spends 25 times as much on benefits for young people than it does in supporting them into work. So there is a real feeling that the review, both Andy Burnham's own views, but then the Milburn review, will look at those opportunities, that support. And Burnham specifically said he didn't want to blame people currently out of work on benefits, maybe when they can work, because he says they have been failed by the system, whether that's the education system, not getting young people into employment, or whether that is sort of creating a system where people can be trapped on benefits.
PIP seems to be the benefit that people are talking about most. Now, that is not related to working. It's a sort of payment for circumstances outside of the world of work. But it does seem incongruous on the face of it that you can be earning you're being given £194 a week through PIP. And it is almost disencouragement to work in some ways.
So PIP is a really difficult one for the government, for people to discuss, because, as you say, it is not an out-of-work benefit. It's to help people with the additional costs that living with health conditions and mental health conditions may bring. But within the Milburn review that I mentioned, he did talk about incentives for work. And there is this argument that's growing that if you are able to get money, and we should note that £194 a week is not going to cover much. It wouldn't cover really rent costs for most people. But he did speak about incentives, and there is a suggestion by some people that if somebody graduates university, is really struggling, for example, or just finishes their education, is dealing with a lot of anxiety or poor mental health, they would think and they would believe that it is easier for themselves to go on benefits, go on PIP, try and support themselves through the relatively small amount that PIP is, rather than get that job. And that sort of seems to be what Andy Burnham is talking about when he discusses changing the opportunities for young people and the incentives to get them better lives.
Bethany, thank you very much indeed. Lots of calls already coming in. 0345 6060 973. Sarah Middleton joins me, an online disability benefits influencer. Sarah, very good evening to you.
Hi.
When you hear Andy Burnham talking in these terms, I mean, your whole existence is about presumably improving lives for disabled people and
Yes.
making sure that they claim the benefits that they're entitled to. What do you think of the language that's being used in this debate?
To be totally honest, I think, the whole PIP argument, the whole these young people changes welfare reform, we've always said there has to be reform, but there has to be the right reforms. We need to get, for decades now, people have been let down by no support. There's been no mental health support for people with mental health crisis. There's been no physical health support. The NHS has been so broken and underfunded and under-resourced that people can't get help. And you end up with kids, young kids who start with EHCPs, SEND kids, moving up, growing up, not getting the support or the treatments or the diagnosis to get to them at an early intervention point. And they end up on a path that for the last 20 years ends up where we are now, all by a system that was created by the Conservatives for all the years they were in and before that. So we are in a situation where we need the support, we need early intervention, we need people to put the money where it's needed, because then people can have a better quality of life. If you take a young child who's coming out of school, is dealing with anxiety and depression, and you get to them with a mental health thing, then they're not sitting there just languishing because there's no support. They're being supported, and with that support, then they can have a better quality of life.
But that all costs money, obviously. And you say the NHS has been chronically underfunded. Well, currently it's taking more than £200 billion of taxpayers' money. And I mean, that's gone up substantially in recent years. And so the natural question is, well, OK, if 200 billion isn't enough, is 300 billion enough? Is 400 billion enough? We know that all public services are under pressure at the moment. So surely some savings have to be found in other areas. And one of these areas, it is suggested, is certainly PIP, where the number of claimants has shot up, particularly for mental health issues, ADHD, anxiety, etc., etc. Politicians from all parties, frankly, have raised this as an area that should be looked at. Now, I'm suspecting you don't agree with that.
No, I don't agree. And the reason I don't...
Call me intuitive if you like.
The reason I don't agree is pure and simple, because where they bring those statistics and those facts out of is a report that says that people on PIP have these conditions, not a report that says people get PIP for having this condition. But they phrase it in such a way and put it out there in such a way that's saying, oh, you can get PIP for ADHD, you can get PIP for anxiety, you can get PIP for depression, you can get PIP for eczema or tennis elbow or acne. And it's not true. What's true is that of everybody on PIP, some people have those conditions as part of their struggle. But that does not mean that there are people that are just out there, just simply, and in fact, it's only 6% of everybody on PIP, according to the DWP's own last records, only 6% of people have PIP that is not related to a physical health condition.
Well, I think Andy Burnham's point is that he wants to make it more difficult to get PIP, not necessarily to take it away from people who already have it. Now, I don't know how much money that would save, or whether it's a small amount or a large amount. But, I mean, given that I'm sure you agree that public finances are under pressure, what would be your suggestion for areas in the welfare budget where money could be saved?
I think Andy Burnham has very clearly spoken about preventative reforms, about changing things at the outset so that we don't end up with people in this situation in the first place. And that is going to take money. Yeah, absolutely. And those people that potentially, do you know, for instance, there are 66,000 disabled people currently trying to either stay in work or get to work, that the government's Access to Work Fund is failing. They are stopping 66,000 people from actually being able to access work. Now, if those 66,000 people were paying taxes, that's a £320 million influx into the government's coffers. But we've had a government say they want more people to work, but we don't have the support to allow people to do it. And actually, these young people, these NEETs, as they call them, are coming more, from what I've read in the Milner report, are coming more from universal credit unemployment and actually not from PIP. They're actually from universal credit.
Well, it's a very complicated area, and I think this is where, in some ways, I mean, I find my brain sort of freezes when you're trying to understand the qualifications for all the different benefits. Yeah. And I suspect that politicians are having a few problems in coming to grips with this as well. Sarah, thank you very much indeed for joining us. That's Sarah Middleton there, an online disability benefits influencer. We'll come to your calls in just a moment. 0345 6060 973. Do you think our benefit system is generally too generous? So if you compare it to some European countries, you couldn't really come to that conclusion. But given the pressures on our public finances, is it the welfare budget that people need to look to first? Because it is one of the largest budgets in government. 16 minutes past 7.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Andy Burnham said to be considering making everyone pay a 10% inheritance tax to help fix the country's broken care system. Is that a cost that you would be happy to bear? Plus, with wildfires continuing to rage across Europe, why do our politicians seem so disinterested in tackling climate change? And more warnings today about the number of young people on benefits. What would your solution be?
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Pick up more sun cream, impromptu picnic, late night cinema trip. Do more this summer, hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
OK, Laura, from the top.
When your 9-year-old is an unexpected tuber prodigy, and now you want to support her cheek-puffing talent, be a step ahead with Barclays Premier. With personalised financial planning and a dedicated advisor. Barclays, backing your future. Eligibility criteria apply. Investment products and services are provided by Barclays Bank PLC and its subsidiaries. Capital at risk.
Gals, guys, get this. Primark's dropped their prices on hundreds of our favourites, like pure cotton PJs and men's cosy hoodies from £7, or women's cotton rich jeans from £9, and kids' extra comfy joggers just £3.50. There's only one word for that. Go on, show us how it's done. Iconic! Couldn't have put it better myself. Iconic value like never before at Primark.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
18 minutes past 7 on LBC. Is our benefit system too generous? That's the overarching question for this hour. Neil is a first-time caller in Sheffield. I'm ashamed to admit it, Neil. I've never been to Sheffield. What a disgrace. What would you like to tell me?
Well, Iain, I'd want to say that you're a legend, first of all. I'm glad I got through to you.
Well, thank you.
No, I said that to be a juicer. I'm currently on PIP, and I'm someone that is in work. And I feel like one way, apart from many ways, one way you could stop some of the money going is get rid of back payments. Because when you get PIP and you get granted, you get your payment later down the line, they back pay you. And it should be, why do they need to back pay you? Why can't they just say you get it on X, Y date and happily gone? I think that would be one cost they could get rid of. It might be a small amount, but it could save something.
What? So they back pay you till when you first got the condition, even though you haven't claimed for it?
No, they back pay you. So when you normally get it, they normally say, right, your first payment will be in 5 weeks, and then they give you 5 weeks worth of pay, and then carry on from there. So they back pay you from when the date, from the experience I've had, the day that they approved it, they back date it to that point. Well,
that seems reasonably fair, doesn't it?
I can see why it's reasonably fair, but at the same time, it's money that could be saved. It's like if you're turn around payment on that fifth week, then what have you done with? You don't necessarily need that money for that week 1 to week 5. I don't necessarily see the need of a full back payment.
Well, that is one idea. You could save some money through that. I mean, to my mind, if the national crisis, and I do think we're heading for a crisis in social care. Definitely. I think we are heading for a crisis if we don't spend more money on defence, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that a lot over the next few months or so. But if the crisis is that big, then every single line of the welfare budget should be examined, shouldn't it?
I agree. I know people that aren't on work and do get a lot of benefit, and someone I know has got a double their payment when the 2-child benefit cap was lifted. So I think benefits overall does need a massive reform. I know a lot of people that are on the benefits don't want to get a job or don't want to go out and work because they are on benefits and they get a lot more money. And another way would be to tax them.
Well, that would be a controversial one as well, wouldn't it? Neil, thank you very much indeed. Anastasia is in Leeds, a city I have been to several times. Hello, Anastasia.
One day we'll meet, Iain. Hope you're well. Now, I feel when this subject comes up, it kind of infuriates me. Now, how about I've actually sent a message to Andy Burnham. Whether he contacts me is another matter, but we'll soon see. What I think would be a good idea is for the people, the most severely disabled should still receive PIP, but the shirkers or the people with a headache or a blister on their finger, or, there seems to be so many people who just want to get a PIP, or if they've got a financial problem, having a financial problem is not a disability. Do you know what I mean? In fact, I think people with disabilities, the very severe, should actually have more money, not less.
Well, I agree with that. I don't think anybody believes that people with severe disabilities should be denied any of the benefits that they're currently entitled to. The problem comes when who decides what a severe disability is? Who decides what a serious mental health problem is? It should only really be decided by medical experts. But of course, it's not medical experts, as I understand it, that are controlling who gets PIP. You're asked various questions by somebody, but they're not a medical person. And that seems to me where the problem starts.
Well, sometimes a person can claim to be an expert when they're not, just because they want to be on payroll. I've seen that with my own eyes, and I don't like that either. There's an awful lot of things I don't like, and I don't have much of a voice, but you've given me a voice tonight.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's what I'm here for. Thank you, Anastasia. Let's go to Dawn, another first-time caller in Bristol. Hello, Dawn.
Good evening.
Evening. What would you like to tell us?
The first thing I'd like to ask you is, why do you call PIP a benefit?
Well, what would you call it?
It's an award.
Well, we're both dancing on the head of a pin here. No, I mean, we can call it what we like, can't we?
My point is, what do you call pensions?
Pensions.
So are they benefits?
Well, they come onto the DWP budget, so you could argue that they were.
Exactly. So why are we calling, because it's disabled people, we call it a benefit, but when it's a pension, which we've also paid in for, bearing in mind we all have to pay national insurance, etc., and tax, and most people who become disabled, yes, there are people who are disabled from birth, but most of us have actually paid into the system.
Yeah.
And it really upsets me that we have this huge thing against disabled people when we're not looking at some of the other places we could save money. For example, MPs' expenses. I mean, Helen Whatley, a Conservative MP who is always going on about disabled benefits, herself claims, I think it's nearly £39,000 a year for a second home when she only lives 50 miles from Westminster.
Well, I mean, you've gone down a diversionary track there. I mean, we can all argue about whether MPs should be able to claim this expense or that expense, but I mean, even if all of their expenses were abolished, it would be a bit of a pinprick in the welfare budget. But I take your point.
I don't disagree with you, but I think what really upsets a lot of people in the disabled community is when it's made out that PIP is just given out willy-nilly, and like Sarah Middleton was saying, it's you get your award because of your condition, how it affects you on your daily sort of. I can't think of the right words because I'm under pressure here. But, it's how your condition affects you on a daily basis, doing tasks. The same with mobility, all this stuff about a free car when we give up a part of our PIP award, which is the enhanced award, which is incredibly difficult to get, by the way, and we have to pay an upfront amount of money. I think, it's very, very hard for the public to actually understand how that makes disabled people feel, because it is one of the hardest things to get. I used to, before I became severely disabled and claimed it myself, I used to help and support people in my job. I worked for a disability employment charity. I used to support people going to their, getting into work, etc., etc. I ran DWP programs. And one of the things I also did was went to their tribunals with them. And as you are probably aware from the statistics of how many decisions are overturned by DWP not making the correct decision.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying about medical people not actually being the arbiters here.
But can I just say to you, and I will tell you this quite frankly, I work in holistic therapies, so I am quite medically trained. I'm not a doctor per se, but I am very medically aware and know an awful lot of stuff. But I've had assessments in person and on the phone, and they don't ask you questions that are medical per se. They are just following a script. Yes. But a medical person doesn't even necessarily know better because they don't know how it affects you in your day-to-day life. The expert is the disabled person or their carers. Those are the experts.
Well, I framed this debate, I hope, deliberately. So I wasn't trying to have a sort of inflammatory debate about, well, disabled people just shouldn't have these benefits, etc., because there are people that believe that. I'm trying to do it in a way that allows people like you to phone in and put your point of view forward, and I think we all learn from people's direct experiences.
I do, and it is the lived experience, and of course, anybody can become disabled. If you'd have told me 10 years ago, and I am even looking at 10 years ago, I was getting PIP then, but only the standard rate for care because of certain difficulties I had with my disability. But if you'd have told me that move 10 years on, Dawn, and you'll be on enhanced for both care and mobility, I'd have probably laughed in your face. I thought, oh, God, it's not going to go that bad. So at 63 now, where I am severely disabled, I can't walk very far, I can't stand for more than a minute without having still, that is, I can stand a bit longer if I'm moving. But I think the fact is that so many people are unaware that they can become, in my shoes, disabled at any point.
Dawn,
and that's why we have to protect it.
I am one of you. I mean, I'm sitting here now. I don't. Well, you're probably not watching. But if I put my hand over my left eye, I can't. I can see there's a camera in front of me, but I can't see anything on it because
you have a disability.
Yeah.
I think
hopefully it's not a permanent one, but I'm not confident that that's the case. And so,
12 months is the timeline under the Equalities Act. Something that has or is expected to last more than 12 months is the definition of disability. And I think people don't look at that definition very often. I mean, the Disability Discrimination Act was encompassed into the Equality Act of 2010, and that was a good thing. But I think Sarah mentioned it when she was talking about the access to work queue, shall we say. I was humiliated last week, absolutely humiliated last week when I was on my phone interview with a support worker helping me to try and get access to work to keep me in employment, okay? And I had to justify why I had to use email rather than snail mail post. Because
really?
I originally applied in March because I had a really traumatic fall in January, and it really changed what I do, and I've had to change what I do in work to try and still earn money, okay? And what was humiliating was that the Royal Mail lost my business plan, and it went around the country for about 2 weeks, and it didn't get there in time. And so they did I had to do a mandatory reconsideration, and it was turned down. They have now completely lost all of that paperwork, but they won't accept things by email because they say it's not secure enough. But you have to justify...
We're living in 2026, people, aren't we?
Absolutely. But I had to justify... I was interrogated to justify why I should be allowed to use email to send in my evidence.
Well, Dawn, thank you very much indeed for a really great phone call. I think we've all learned a lot from it. Deborah issues a timely reminder. She says, just a reminder that PIP is paid to people who are in work too. It's not an out-of-work benefit. I think I did say that at the beginning of the programme, but it is easy to confuse it. I completely agree. We'll take more of your calls on this in a moment, and we'll also get the latest on all of these wildfires in France and Spain. But meanwhile, here in Britain, we've also seen wildfires in the Cairngorms in Scotland over the past couple of weeks. We'll get more on that in just a second. It's 7:31 on LBC. News headlines with Amelia Cox.
EU officials have warned wildfires across the continent could continue burning until November. More than 200,000 people have had to leave their homes near Bordeaux in France. The UK is facing a fourth possible heat wave this week, with heat health alerts for parts of England upgraded to amber. The NHS is being told to prepare for higher demand in the East Midlands, east of England, south east and London from 9 a.m. on Wednesday. And Andy Burnham has told Volodymyr Zelensky that he and the UK are behind Ukraine 100%. He made the comments as he welcomed the president to a naval base in Portsmouth, where Ukrainian military personnel have been training. LBC weather, heavy rain moves into the north tonight. Elsewhere, some light rain with clearer skies in the far southeast, a low of 9 degrees.
Hear every side of the story. LBC.
Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip? Do more this summer. Hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30 a.m. on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
Last night, I was watching an episode of Amadeus where Mozart
exploded, launched another Real Housewife during Shiv Roy's wedding night, where she asks Tom for an open
sandwich, Chicago beef filling, cooked by a chef in a pastel Regency gown. Oh, quite steamy.
Get Sky, Hey You, HBO Max, Disney Plus and Netflix together in one simple subscription. Go to sky.com.
Requires Sky Stream and Sky Ultimate TV subscription. Minimum broadband speed of 30 megabits per second recommended. 18 plus.
Vodafone is backing the UK with an £11 billion investment to make the nation's biggest network even better.
Fair play. That's a big commitment.
So you can launch that business.
So I can start selling my model trains in Pwllheli.
Multitask in a haze of glory.
I could stream Wimbledon
All done whilst on a video call.
Start doing more of what you love from more places. Opportunity awaits. Switch to Vodafone today on the Nations Network.
Nations Network means UK's biggest network through Vodafone 3 merger based on mobile sites versus major providers. Network improvements by 2034. See vodafone.co.uk/TNN. Subject to coverage.
Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
7:33 on LBC. Now, around 400,000 people have now been evacuated from homes in southwestern France and central Spain because the wildfires in those regions in France, the fires are less than 10 miles away from the city of Bordeaux. Meanwhile, here in Britain, we've also seen wildfires in the Cairngorms in Scotland over the past couple of weeks. Well, this morning, the European Relations Minister, Hamish Faulkner, has admitted that authorities here need to start preparing for how they'd respond to large-scale wildfires breaking out in the UK.
There are wildfires in Scotland as well, and we're in touch with the Scottish Government about what support the British Government can provide. But yes, we are preparing, and we know that we need to go further yet. These are incredibly concerning scenes around Bordeaux in Spain. I think the Spanish Government have been pretty clear that they think that the increasing ferocity of the wildfires that they face are a result of man-made climate change, and we do need to take those warnings very seriously indeed.
Well, anyone that's seen the TV pictures of the fires, particularly in France and Spain, can see what dangers face the people living in those areas. Around 300,000 people at least have been displaced so far. So far, the loss of life has been relatively minimal, but I suspect that as the fires spread, we're going to find out that more and more people will have lost their lives. So why is this happening? Why are so many wildfires breaking out? Many of them could be down to people doing it deliberately, but the fact is they're spreading much more than they ever used to because, it has to be said, of atmospheric and climate changes that are occurring. Well, let's talk to Dr. Becky Wagner, who's an atmospheric chemist and climate scientist at the University of Sheffield. Becky, very good to talk to you. I was reading an article in The Telegraph today by the journalist Tim Stanley, and he was essentially saying that the conditions for wildfires have got worse over the last few years because you have wetter winters. So there's more sort of material to dry out, and then if there is a fire, it catches it sort of is incinerated much more easily. Is there something in that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me. Yeah, for sure. Like you've said, we've obviously had sort of climate change impacts, so we're seeing much more wetter winters, and that's leading to much more growth of these vegetation in the sort of forests and grassland regions. And then we're having much more extreme and prolonged heat waves as well. So we're having much longer and much more extreme hot and dry conditions. This is then drying out the vegetation, which is then becoming much more flammable. So then it means that when a fire does start, this vegetation's catching much more easily. It can then spread much more rapidly, starting with more smaller vegetation to then catching onto larger litter for trees. And then this is obviously causing these really extreme fires and much more rapid fires that we've been seeing more recently over the last few years.
So this is something that is clearly, I say clearly, it seems clear to me, but maybe you'll disagree, is going to happen every year. It's going to get worse and worse. And presumably we could be seeing the scenes that we're now seeing in France and Spain here.
Yeah, we are seeing much more. We're seeing record years of fires. So France has seen its record year of fires more recently this year. We're seeing much more fires in the UK. I'm sure we've all seen, like you've mentioned, the fires in Scotland, fires in Peak District recently. It's becoming much more common. And I suppose the main issue is how do we go forward in preventing these large fires in the UK and what can be done really to prevent these fires.
So what can be done? Because I suppose fire brigades up and down the country are looking at this and thinking, OK, well, if this happened here, how well equipped are we to fight these fires? I suspect there are many fire brigades up and down the country are looking at these pictures in France and Spain with absolute horror and wondering if they have the facilities to do the same as the French and Spanish fire brigades are doing.
Yeah, I know. Really, really scary pictures coming from Europe. I think the key thing for the UK is, even though we actually call them wildfires, they aren't technically caused by nature, or very few of them are caused by nature. the main source is through human ignition sources. So I think the main sort of route is going towards better public messaging. I know the fire service has been doing a great job of that already, but even sort of in the Peak District where I live, we're still seeing people bring in disposable barbecues and those kind of things. So it's like maybe that message is getting lost somewhere. And also better monitoring and early detection. And that's something that we're working on at Sheffield, looking at the particulate matter, air quality impacts of fires, and maybe how can that can lead in with the fire services for better detection of these fires and trying to prevent them early before they spread too much.
Becky, thank you very much. That's Dr. Betty Wagner there from the University of Sheffield. Right, back to your calls on benefits and welfare. Alex is in Bournemouth. Very good evening, Alex.
Evening. So I understand that you said you don't want this debate to be inflammatory. So my main question is, what is the purpose of comparing a teenager on PIP who earns more than a teenager in part-time work?
Well, ask Andy Burnham that. He was the one that started this debate, saying he wanted to restrict access to PIP from some people, particularly young people. So that's the reason we're having the debate.
Yeah, so my point is that because this has been throughout the shows all day, I don't think you can compare the two, because a person on PIP is used that money to pay for stuff they need to keep themselves alive, because they've been assessed as needing that money. So if I'm forced to spend that on things like social care workers or council care to support workers that help me, I've not really earned more than the counterpart who can go to work and may have to use that for their daily living, but I am forced to do it, otherwise I will get worse. So the argument that you earn more through PIP than you do through work is non-farcical, other than the point that you also made that PIP is not an out-work benefit. So I give you credence to that, but I think the idea that we're comparing the two is kind of farcical.
I think the point that was made originally on this was that it's actually it means that some people who are maybe 16 to 18 who are doing part-time work, they're the ones that could be put off from doing that part-time work because they see other people earning more than, I say earning, that's probably the wrong word, getting more than they do through work. And I think Andy Burnham is right when he says, and Keir Starmer was quite hot on this as well, when they're trying to get more and more young people to actually get into work and get into the habit of working. And I mean, what you also, it's just because it depends what form of disability you have, I guess, but just because you have a disability, whether it's to do with your mental health or physical health, that doesn't necessarily mean that work is out of the question for you.
No, but that's my point, though. The point is that, one, you can work whilst being on PIP at 16 to 18, but the PIP money that you are allocated is used to pay for the impacts of your conditions. And so you're not really keeping that money and being able to spend it as you would want. It is there to keep you at a level playing field as your healthier counterpart who is also doing the same work. So the argument doesn't really make any sense in that regard, because what you're basically saying is that people on PIP are able to make money, but they're not making the money. That money is being used to give them services that they need to stay alive. So
what you're saying is somebody who maybe has a form of anxiety or has a mental health condition, they could spend that £194 on counselling to help them with their condition.
Well, not just counselling. It could be like they might need a support worker daily that they need to have to take care of them. They might need extra transport because they have to get around to do various things that they have to do in order to keep their mental health well-being assured, which someone who doesn't have to do that thing. Also, I'm just losing my train of thought, but it's just the idea that we treat mental health specifically as being like, oh, it's just people gaming the system, when the conditions to get that far are just not comparable. And I think that linking PIP to work when it's clearly not an out-work benefit demonstrates that Andy Burnham's just following the same line Keir Starmer did, and that's why the backbenchers rebelled against him, because they weren't listening to what constituents and the backbenchers were trying to tell them, which is that you need to invest in the support first, get people out of the emaciated social care that they've had for like 10 years, and then once they're better, you can then help them into work. But it's going to be a long process. It can't just be fixed by a cut.
So is there any part of the welfare budget that you think is ripe for reform and where money could be saved?
I would say that the biggest cost, I think, that welfare takes up is housing benefit. But the problem is you need that housing benefit. So I would say a supply-side investment of housing is the best approach. Other than that, you could look at the triple lock. I would say that making it either up to inflation or even just a double lock might be better. But my main purpose is I don't think you can cut your way to getting people into it, because that's what we've been trying and it's failed. I mean, I was on PIP and I worked, but eventually, because social care was so bad, I got so deteriorated from the lack of support that I became unable to work. And I don't want the next generation, which now gets less for LCWRA, which is the universal credit element of health, to get even worse because they're getting less help than I did 10 years ago.
Alex, thank you very much. Chris is in Wolverhampton. Chris, what's your view?
Hiya, great show, by the way. I was actually talking to a friend of mine who's currently living in Hong Kong, but she's Chinese national. And I was getting into the car and your show started. I was listening to it. And we were literally talking about her renewing her old age insurance policy. It's a bit like a social care insurance policy that you buy from your local authority or nationally. It basically looks after you for dementia, any later life social care issues that are needed, as well as private pension insurance, which is another form of a private pension.
So how much does this kind of insurance cost?
Around about 9,000 yuan, so around about £900 a year. But you're only paying it for a certain amount of years. I've been doing my research while I've been on hold myself, and you're only paying for it for a certain amount of years, and it covers you for the rest.
It's quite a lot of money, though, £900 a year, isn't it?
It is. And to be fair, while I was looking, there is a current, I can't say because I work in financial services, I can't give any biased opinion, but there is an insurance provider in the UK that does a dementia insurance already as well, that I've literally just found, which I sell, and I didn't even know they did that policy. So it's very new.
Well, I must admit, I wasn't aware of this either. I mean, that sounds
I can't say which one it is, but there is a UK one that literally covers 100,000 for dementia, 200,000 in total cover. So it does help with it.
200,000 though. I mean, given that care home fees are probably going to be about £2,000 a week, so that would cover you for 2 years. That's probably not going to be enough, is it?
Who knows? But there's a lot of reforms needed. I think the employment allowance tax balances, they need raised. 12,500 needs to be up to about 18,000 now, really.
Do you know how much that would cost in terms of what the Treasury would have to pay out each year?
I agree, but also total tax reform as well. We need to be more competitive. Wasn't it Maggie Thatcher that said we're a country of shopkeepers from Napoleon Bonaparte?
Yeah, I think he said that. Yeah.
We need growth. We need growth.
Well, we do, and I agree. Cutting taxes is one of the ways to get growth, but you can't advocate increasing public spending and also cutting taxes. It doesn't compete, does it?
It doesn't, but it does work in other countries where, like Singapore, Malaysia, them sort of places. It does work. And obviously, we need to compete in the world. We need to be a place where people want to come and do business, not scared of doing business and investing.
Well, I totally agree with that, Chris. Thank you very much indeed. We are going to talk. Well, let me tell you who's on Cross Question before we go to a break, which, if I've got my papers in order, I could have told you right now. Here we are. Rachel Millward. She is deputy leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. She's a local councillor in East Sussex. Leonie Cooper, Labour member of the London Assembly. Tony Devenish, Conservative member of Westminster City Council. And businessman Kieran Fothergill. They'll be here from 8 to answer your questions. You may want to ask something about this subject, but there's plenty of other things to talk about today as well. You're listening to LBC. I'm Iain Dale. It's 7:48.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Teenagers claiming sickness benefits for anxiety, more than 2/3 of them on the upper tier get £194 a week. Now, a 16-year-old working 12 hours a week, that's the legal maximum during term time, on the under 18 minimum wage, will take home around £94 a week. So work really does not pay, does it? What do you think?
I think we need to be looking at where we are going to provide the work for these people.
I've just noticed a very big increase in young people who are working the system in order to get the benefits.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip. Do more this summer, hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
Take summer by storm with Kia. Introducing the new Kia Sportage Storm, a unique limited edition of the UK's favourite family SUV. Test drive the award-winning Kia Sportage today and order yours by the 31st of August to get 5.9% APR representative and up to £3,000 PCP finance deposit contribution. Search Kia Take Summer by Storm. Kia. Movement that inspires. T's and C's apply. Kia Finance. To verify, visit kia.com/UK/favourite.
Honestly, I've been putting MTD off. First it was, I'll do it after this job. Then, after some grouting. After sorting the back of the van. After fish fingers and peas. And then I thought, no, just get it done.
Get MTD done simply with Sage for free. Just connect to your bank, we'll sort your transactions, then submit your update to HMRC. Search Sage MTD.
Vodafone is backing the UK with an £11 billion investment to make the nation's biggest network even better.
Fair play, that's a big commitment.
So you can launch that business.
So I can start selling my model trains in Pwllheli.
Multitask in a haze of glory.
I could stream Wimbledon whilst on a video call.
Start doing more of what you love from more places. Opportunity awaits. Switch to Vodafone today on the nation's network.
Nation's network means UK's biggest network through Vodafone 3 merger based on mobile sites versus major providers. Network improvements by 2034. See vodafone.co.uk/TNN, subject to coverage.
Iain Dale on LBC. Listen on your smart speaker. Just say, play LBC.
7:50. It's not often I say I told you so. But with the news today that a new poll has put Labour in the lead for the first time for more than a year, one of my colleagues here at LBC reminded me of a prediction I made at the end of September last year. This is what I said. Now, Nigel Farage has, should we say, got a record of sometimes imploding. I'm not predicting that's going to happen between now and then. But if you think about it, since the beginning of the Reform UK Party conference, only a couple of weeks ago, some strange things have happened, let's put it that way, and we're going to come to a few of those in a moment. But I think the strangest thing this week was the announcement on immigration, where they effectively said that they would deport many people who are here on indefinite leave to remain. And I said on Monday that I thought that there would be a lot of voters, not necessarily aligned voters, but people who were considering voting reform for all sorts of different reasons. And I thought to myself on Monday, I think a lot of those people will actually have second thoughts now. And then today on the radio, on LBC, Nigel Farage was doing a phone-in with Nick Ferrari and said all sorts of things that I'm thinking, if you want to be Prime Minister, you can't say things like this. I mean, about immigrants eating swans in the royal parks. I mean, it just defies belief. Do you remember when Donald Trump said something similar about these migrants? They're eating dogs.
They're eating the dogs.
They're eating cats.
They're eating the cats.
They're eating your pets.
They're eating the pets.
And Nigel Farage went down that road, and then he wouldn't say that paracetamol was safe. I'm thinking these are not the actions of a future Prime Minister. So my conclusion to this, and I may be completely wrong here, we won't know until sort of a few years' time, but I get the suspicion that Reform UK might have peaked in the polls. Now, that remark is probably going to come back and haunt me, but it hasn't. In the week that I made those comments, the last week of September last year, the polls to More in Common had Reform on 32%. They did actually rise to 33% in October, but it's been a steady downhill trickle ever since then. With today's new poll from More in Common putting Nigel Farage's party on 24% of the vote, some 4% behind Labour. Meanwhile, in YouGov's polls, Reform have never got above 29% they had in late September and now down on only 22%, with that pollster tied with Labour. Now, I remember writing a newspaper article for the iNewspaper saying that I thought Reform had peaked, and I was ridiculed for it. Rael Braverman, if you're listening, Suella Braverman's husband, he tweeted that I would live to, he asked people to bookmark that tweet and that article. Well, I say to you, Mr. Braverman, who was right, you or me? The graph of Reform support is on the downward trend. The Conservative is going up slightly. Labour's has gone up. Now, I don't know how long that bounce is going to last, but I'll make another prediction now. Let's see if I'm right on this one. That by Christmas, Reform will be in third place. Labour will be in first place. The Conservatives will be in second place and Reform will be in third place. Let's see if I'm right, shall we? Right, back to your calls on welfare reform. Clifford is in Lewisham. Hello, Clifford.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, what would you like to say?
Right. 6% and 3% is hardly anything, because the welfare bill, what the opposition won't tell you is that the welfare bill is only 3% of the UK's annual budget.
How do you work that out?
PIP, being 6% with 3%, will not bankrupt this nation.
Well, the annual spending of the government is about £1.3 trillion. The welfare budget, if you include pensions, is around £333 billion. If you don't include pensions, it's around 170. So where you're getting 3% from, I do not know, my friend.
I haven't done the research this year, but 2 years ago it was roughly 3%. The welfare bill was roughly 3% of the total of the UK's.
Well, it wasn't. It just isn't. I mean, I just gave you the figures of what we spend on welfare, and whether you include pensions or not, it's more like about 14-15% without pensions, and with pensions, it's around 25%.
What are we including in that?
Well, all benefits.
So, as well as the pensions?
Yes.
Yeah? Well, then the sources that I got offline from government officials back about 3 years ago, like I said, was totally wrong. And at that time, it was a Conservative government.
Well, I think you need to go and check your figures there, if I'm honest, Clifford, because they were wrong 3 years ago. They're certainly wrong now. The welfare budget overall, and as I say, if you include pensions, it is the biggest budget of any government department. As I say, it's around 25%. Now, given that it is the biggest budget, clearly any government looking to save money is going to look at the biggest budgets, and they are welfare and the NHS. There is no getting away from that. The NHS budget is something over 200 billion now. So you put those two budgets together, and you've got roughly 40-45% of total public spending is on welfare and the NHS. I would submit to you that that is unsustainable. Clifford, thank you. Let's go to Richard in Nottingham. Hello, Richard.
Hi there. Yeah, I'd just like to point something out. In '95, my wife, who was a registered nurse, she ended up going into hospital because she had a growth on her spine. Now, that meant that to open up her back, get rid of this thing, put a titanium plate in and scaffolding to hold her back together. And she was told in no uncertain terms before the op that she would have nerve pain for the rest of her life, which she's got. So eventually she became totally disabled. Now, at that point, you were talking about disability benefit. And the difference then to now is that when she went, it was a doctor that performed the analysis and it was a proper full medical where he looked at her back, he could see this scar which was over a foot long, and he said, it's quite obvious to me, and he could look at the x-rays and everything. So she had a proper medical examination. Now, they've dropped that, and why have they dropped it? Because they don't want to pay the fees for putting a GP or a doctor in the place. So they've come up with this Mickey Mouse system where people question you online and forms and things, and it ends up costing a lot more because what happens is the whole thing's overturned at the end. If they
you're right. The percentage of people who appeal and are successful, I think, is around 70%.
Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't get to that which again, because you're going into it a second time, is costing even more money to the government. Whereas what I'm trying to say is that if the analysis was done properly in the first place by a doctor or someone of equal knowledge, you wouldn't get that problem.
Well, I'm sure it'll be put right, Richard, when AI determines all of these things. Can you imagine it? AI deciding on whether someone should get PIP or not. I can assure you it's going to happen. Thank you all very much for your calls. Coming up in the next hour, it's Monday's Cross Question. We will have the Deputy Leader of the Green Party with us, Rachel Millwood. She's also a local councillor in East Sussex. Leonie Cooper is Labour member of the London Assembly for Merton and Wandsworth, also Labour's Environment spokesperson in City Hall. Tony Devonish, Conservative member of Westminster City Council and a former member of the London Assembly. And Kieran Fothergill, a businessman who leads companies in the engineering, cyber security and hospitality sectors. They're here to answer your questions on 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850 and you can watch us on Global Player, the LBC app and the LBC YouTube channel.
On your radio, on the LBC app and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, the Prince and Princess of Wales say their thoughts are with everyone affected by wildfires in France, Spain and the UK. Firefighters near Bordeaux in southwest France are trying to take advantage of a brief spell of favourable weather to bring the flames there under control. More than 200,000 people have been forced to leave their homes. Dr. Becky Wagner is an atmospheric chemist and climate scientist at the University of Sheffield.
So we're seeing much more wetter winters, and that's leading to much more growth of these vegetation in the sort of forests and grassland regions. And then we're having much more extreme and prolonged heat waves as well. So we're having much longer and much more extreme hot and dry conditions. This is then drying out the vegetation, which is then becoming much more flammable.
In the UK, firefighters are still tackling fires in the Cairngorms and Peak District national parks. At least 5 people have died in water across the UK as the country prepares for a 4th possible heat wave. 2 people got into difficulty at Loch Fyne in Western Scotland yesterday. Separately, a father and daughter were pulled from the water at Fistral Beach in Newquay, and a man died at the beach in West Wittering in West Sussex. Andy Burnham has welcomed Volodymyr Zelensky, his first international leader since taking office a week ago. The Prime Minister told the Ukrainian president he and the UK are behind Ukraine 100%. He took the president to a Portsmouth naval base where Ukrainian military personnel have been training. Mr Zelensky thanked him for his support.
Our relationship with the UK is stronger than ever, and I thank Andy for his commitment to this partnership and for giving so much attention to defence and to our security.
Victims of a funeral director who failed to bury people and gave families the wrong ashes have started reading impact statements in court. A 5-day sentencing hearing for Robert Bush has begun at Hull Crown Court. And comedian and wildlife presenter Bill Oddie has been described as Britain's best-loved birder following his death aged 85. He originally found fame in the 1970s as a member of the Goodies. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 45 points at 10,781. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.17. LBC weather, heavy rain for Northern Ireland this evening, moving into southern and western Scotland tonight. Lighter rain for the rest of Scotland and then northern England and Wales, lows of 9 to 15 degrees. Rain dying out in the north tomorrow, sunny in the south, highs of 17 to 29 Celsius. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Matt Hewitt.
This is LBC. from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening to you. It's 8 minutes. Welcome to Monday's Cross Question. In fact, it's the last Monday Cross Question until September, can you believe? Because we don't do Cross Question in August. We're a bit lazy like that. Rachel Millward is here. She is Deputy Leader of the Green Party of England and Wales and the Leader of Wealdon District Council in East Sussex. Next to her is Tony Devonish, Conservative Member of Westminster City Council, a former member of the London Assembly. To my left, Leonie Cooper is a current member of the London Assembly for Labour. She represents Merton and Wandsworth, and she's also Labour's environment spokesperson in City Hall. And next to her, making his debut on the show, Kieran Fothergill, who's a businessman who leads companies in the engineering, cybersecurity and hospitality sectors. Quite a variety there. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Obviously, you know the number to call, 0345 6060 973. If you'd like to ask a question by a phone call, you can WhatsApp on that number. You can text 84850. And of course, you can watch our whole programme live on Global Player, the LBC app, or the LBC YouTube channel.
Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Cross Question. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Well, let's start off with a WhatsApp question from Alexa. No, not that one. Do you think undocumented men should be allowed to wander around freely from army buildings in which they've been placed? And should they be allowed access to services that everyone else struggles to access? Rachel, you represent an area of East Sussex that has a centre for migrants in Crowborough, and I guess this is a subject that a lot of your constituents are concerned about.
Mm-hmm. So yes, we have an army training camp in Crowborough that the Home Office is using to accommodate asylum seekers, and asylum seekers are allowed to come and go as they please by law. They're not detained. They can't be tagged. They're not criminals. They're not illegal. It is by international law. It's a legal right to come and seek asylum here. That's what they're doing, and they're waiting for their claims to be processed. And so there is just there would be no way of stopping that. I can also tell you many stories of integration where the men in that particular camp are. So there's like about 100 Christians there who go to local churches in Crowborough. There are Muslims who are sort of connecting with nearby mosques. There are people who are going into the community. There are people who are volunteering across our area, whether it's on farms or various different projects. There's also a group of volunteers. There's actually a couple of hundred volunteers who signed up to basically provide activities for asylum seekers, because the Home Office doesn't really do that. Unless it's incredibly important, we don't have the right to work, that you have good things to do. And one of the things they do is go on lovely walks on the Ashdown Forest. Pooh Bear's Forest is right there. And people are having a really wonderful time with that kind of cross-cultural exchange. So it's not all the kind of...
No, but you know as well as I do, there are lots of marches, I don't know whether they're still going on, from local residents who do not... they will listen to what you've said on that and obviously take a very different viewpoint. Do you understand their concerns?
I understand the concerns of the local community. Primarily, I think the huge mistake the Home Office made was not communicating, at all. They didn't consult, but they didn't even communicate. Everybody, including us as the local authority, heard about it because it was leaked in the press, the decision having been made, which is shocking.
So you I think you were deputy leader then, weren't you? But so your council was not consulted over the fact that site was going to have a change of use?
Well, we were told that it was being considered, and we raised loads of concerns about it. One of them was actually, what would your communication plan be? But there were other things about how would you provide services, all this kind of thing. And before we had any answers to those concerns or any exchange, it was suddenly leaked over sort of half term last October that it was all happening, and that was that. And it is mind blowing. Talking about all these volunteers who've been in there providing brilliant services, having doing things like drumming workshops, art workshops, but also language lessons every single day, really, really vital support. And the funding the Home Office is grateful and saying, oh, they're providing a fantastic service, and they're kind of recognising what they're doing, but they've only just now actually bringing in any funding for it. And so we have to distribute that funding. But it's been going since November. And that sort of just blows my mind, the way the project is run.
Okay.
But a lot, yeah.
Tony Devenish.
I think the fundamental issue, and I for once will agree with a Green Party member, is the communication side. It's the lack of communication. In all my years in politics, the Home Office normally win #1 prize in non-communicating with anybody. And, you know, we have had exactly the same in Westminster City Council, where people have been literally dumped on us, and we found out through our officers 48 hours, 72 hours after they've actually arrived. Yes, of course, somebody somewhere has been told that it may happen in weeks, months or years, but it's that lack of communication. Because, of course, from our side, we want to reassure people. We don't want nasty rumours starting on the internet, but it is all about communicate.
And that's the problem, isn't it? That if there is no information, all the conspiracy theories just start going,
The
don't
misinformation, the disinformation has been horrendous. I mean, and also sometimes just sort of quite ludicrous. Like apparently there were hundreds of electric bikes there, and then, you know, sort of there actually haven't been any incidents associated with the camp so far. The crime rate is very low in the area, but the stories can go everywhere. And certainly at the beginning, it was free for all.
Leonie.
I mean, I agree that the communication has to be really good with the local councils, you know, wherever that might be. But the second thing that then needs to happen so that people can have that reassurance is not leaving people in particular places, whether that be hotels or barracks or wherever else, for lengthy periods of time. And I'm still would like to see them going much, much faster in terms of processing people's claims. I think they have started to get much more of a wriggle on and turning them around, and I think that's a really good thing. But, you know, why should people be left to languish in a place that isn't necessarily where they would want to stay long term, whether that's here if their claim is assessed positively or whether it's somewhere else.
Because no one's ever come up with a solution that if people aren't in hotels, and the government have made great players say, well, we've closed half of them. Well, they've got to go somewhere, haven't they?
Well, if you create the safe and the well-managed legal routes beforehand, then you would have way fewer people.
That ship has sailed, hasn't it?
Well, it would make a difference from here. I mean, certainly you can say if there's a country where we know there's a genocide going on, we know people's lives are at risk, and frankly, we know they will be granted asylum, we could just do it. We did it with Ukraine. There was an invasion and we did it.
Kieran.
Well, I talk from personal experience in economically less prosperous parts of the UK, Middlesbrough, for example, where I'm from, my hometown. I do often walk around.
I'm loving your Middlesbrough accent, by the way.
I was sent away for school, not my fault. I often walk around the town centre there, and it's the same for Stockton-on-Tees, where my business is based. And I must say, looking at it from the local residents' perspective, it is quite frightening to see gangs of young men on the street corners who look a little bit threatening. I'm just talking plainly how it appears to people. And often residents there have told me that they don't feel safe walking around the streets of their hometown. Now, the issue here is that we've got mass unemployment and a lot of social unrest amongst the white working class community as it is. So if you then couple that with high levels of asylum seekers, because the government coincidentally puts a lot of asylum seekers in places like Middlesbrough because the hotels are cheaper, then you have a recipe for unrest and tension. And that's just a fact.
You say about groups of young men sort of look threatening. Why do you think people automatically think or feel that they are threatened by these groups? Would they? And I'm imagining most of them aren't white.
That's right.
Does skin colour play a role here?
Well, people have prejudices. I mean, that's a fact of human nature. And I think people immediately are slightly concerned by people that don't look like them. I mean, that's just a fact. So in where you have, as I say again, areas of predominantly white working class people, and then big influxes of mainly young men, as you say, who are from perhaps the Middle East or Africa, etc. We know then it's just a fact that there is going to be tension. That's why the riots happened in Middlesbrough. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But it's a fact that it's causation. You see, that's all.
So, what can be done to alleviate people's fears? Because there have been incidents, I suppose there was always bound to be. If you've got a group of X thousand young men, there are always going to be unfortunate incidents, whether it's sort of a relatively normal type of crime or sexual violence. What can be done to reassure people that these are very much not the norm?
I mean, one thing is just to share real information, so real statistics. Stop sort of, the press attention on any negative story far outweighs any of the positive stories that we could tell. It's why I mentioned some of the experience of the volunteers, because people don't, what comes to mind isn't a group of people going on a lovely hike or getting involved in some volunteering. And yet you talk to people who are around the Napier camp, and some of the community kind of really miss all that volunteer force that they had in the community. And actually they did have a valuable cultural exchange over time. And that, it's about connection, and it's about the stories that we tell. And we are in a situation where the national narrative is just demonising asylum seekers and blaming immigrants for our problems, whether that's housing or whatever it is, jobs, health.
But if the media didn't report some of these incidents, like the one in Epping, for example, where 2 young girls were sexually assaulted, I mean, if we don't report them, then we get accused of covering it up.
No, it's about proportionality, I suppose. But perhaps more important is the blame that's going on, and the kind of, we are in a situation where scapegoating is happening. So, violence against women and girls isn't an immigration problem. It's not a problem that belongs to migrants. It's a problem right across our society.
Well, it is,
a woman is killed every 5 days.
But some of them are coming from countries where attitudes to women and girls, should we say, aren't the same as ours, generally.
I mean, as I say, in this country, a woman is killed often by her partner or her ex-partner every 5 days. If we want to talk about attitude to women and girls, I think we have to start there.
Okay. Right, we'll move on to another subject in just a few moments' time. You're listening to LBC. It's Cross Question at 8:15.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Andy Burnham said to be considering making everyone pay a 10% inheritance tax to help fix the country's broken care system. Is that a cost that you would be happy to bear? Plus, with wildfires continuing to rage across Europe, why do our politicians seem so disinterested in tackling climate change? And more warnings today about the number of young people on benefits. What would your solution be?
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
When your daughter's wedding guest list is double-sided, enjoy every hand-clapping second of it. Be a step ahead with Barclays Premier, with our best savings rates. Barclays, backing your future. Eligibility criteria apply, T's and C's apply.
You can now get Sky, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Netflix, and Hey You together in one subscription. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, take your seats on your sofas, brew your cuppers, and turn your phones to silent. Because the world of ultimate entertainment is about to begin. Sit back, relax, and head to sky.com to find out more.
Shh! It's starting!
Requires Sky Stream and Sky Ultimate TV subscription. Minimum broadband speed of 30 megabits per second recommended. 18 plus.
Ever notice how some things are just standard? Traffic on the M4, standard. Meetings that could have been an email, standard. But at Aon, our cars are driving the new standard. The new Aon V has rapid charging, standard. Panoramic glass roof, standard. 8 years servicing, 8 years MOT, 8 years roadside assistance, and up to 8 years warranty. Also standard, thanks to our Great 8 promise. Search Aon Auto to test drive today. T's and C's apply.
Cross Question with Iain Dale. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
8:17. Let me reintroduce my panel. Leonie Cooper is a Labour member of the London Assembly. Tony Devenish, a Conservative member of Westminster City Council. Kieran Fothergill, businessman. He says leads companies. Does it mean owns companies?
Both.
Both. In the engineering, cybersecurity and hospitality sectors. And Rachel Millward is Deputy Leader of the Green Party and Leader of Wealdon District Council. Right, here's a WhatsApp question from Kieran in Earl's Court. Given the UK emits less than 1% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions, how concerned should we be about and how culpable are we for the wildfires in France and Spain? Leonie, you are environment spokesperson for the Labour Party in City Hall.
Yeah, I mean, we might only emit 1%, less than 1% now, but obviously over the years, in the past, we've emitted a much larger percentage. It's just that other countries have caught up and have gone down this route as well. And I think all of us are culpable. You can't have a boundary. You know, we have one atmosphere, it moves around. Weather is not sort of particular to one place or another. So every country in the world, every person in the world needs to it's yet another wake-up call. Donald Trump about 4 weeks ago was shouting about Canada covering Washington in smoke because they'd had wildfires in Canada. We know what happened around Los Angeles. Palisades was basically burnt to the ground. So it's going on all over the place, and we're just about to go into another heat wave here from Wednesday, so in a couple of days' time.
I thought we were already in it, hence the shirt.
Doesn't stop. We've come out of heat wave.
Kieran's made such an effort, looking very suave, and there's me with my Hawaiian shirt on.
It's to do with whether we're over 30 degrees for 3 days in a row. So it is still warm.
Is that what counts as a heat wave?
Yeah, that's actually a definition. Right. So it's only, in inverted commas, 28 degrees today. So we're currently not in a heat wave, Ian. But, we all need to be doing whatever we can to take action. And that includes, obviously, China and America, but it also includes us. And we've made great strides, which is why we now have such a small percentage. We've moved on so far. The government listens to the Committee on Climate Change, which has had Conservative chairs and Labour chairs and also business chairs. It's much better for us to take action and stop these things from happening because it's incredibly expensive and horribly destructive. And, 200,000 people, France and Spain, are now not at home, and they may not have a home to go back to because it may have been burnt to the ground. So, I mean, it seems to me mad not to want to take action, whatever percentage we emit.
A lot of people listening will say, well, that's all very well, but we've done more than most other countries in this. Shouldn't we, before we impose more costs on British people, should we not wait for some of the others to catch us up?
I think some of them are catching us up. I mean, I think we're all going at slightly different speeds and addressing different things, but I don't think there's any reason to stop. And I haven't heard that there are a whole new set of costs coming down the track, to be ladled onto people at the moment. I mean, I think we just have to carry on pressing ahead to try and transform the way that we lead certain aspects of our lives. I mean, there are some people who are already saying it's too late. I hope that's not right, because, that's why I think we need to do more.
Kieran?
I think it's quite telling that Ed Miliband has been moved on from his energy brief. But
he's been replaced by Miata Fahnbulleh, who is a disciple of Ed Miliband.
Sure, but I think there might be a little bit more wiggle room. Let's see, with Andy Burnham talking about drilling in the North Sea and taking a little bit more ownership of that department. But the point is, I mean, my overall point on this particular topic would be, sure, we need a coordinated effort. It's shocking what's happening in France and Spain. We need to be proactive. We need to plan. We need to learn from what's happening in global events. But my answer wouldn't be to impoverish this country and make the poorest in our society pay more for their energy, etc. In order to punish ourselves for what's happened in the past. I believe in enlightenment values, a solution landscape that does not yet exist. I believe in innovation and technology and the solutions of the future. And I think we need economic prosperity and the conditions for innovation to thrive in order to fund the public purse that is going to pay for the action that I've talked about in the future.
Okay. Tony?
I think at the end of the day, the answer is not government always saying this is the way we're going to do it. It's business, and business have done a great job. And that's the reason why we have, in many ways, made more progress than many other countries. We've got loads of brilliant engineers and scientists in the UK. I don't think just passing another law on anything works. What works is a sense of urgency. I often use the example of the Ukraine war. We've done so much more in military technology, unfortunately, because of the war in Ukraine. And I think you need that sense of urgency on any major crisis, including the climate economic crisis. But I don't think it's going to be somebody passing a law in this country or in any other country. But we need to use business to drive this. And if we can make money, I'm a great believer, we've got to grow the economy. All parties agree with that. I think even the Greens now, we actually have to have a bigger tax take by having a bigger economy. And if we can make something that actually helps on climate change, great. And we already are. There's many, many products, many services that are already being passed around the rest of the world.
Tim Stanley wrote an interesting piece in the Telegraph today, I don't know if you've seen it, about saying that the right is getting it totally wrong on climate change, and certainly the online right, which is coming across as sort of head in the sand, uncompassionate, etc., etc. And Kemi Badenoch has made it a plank of her party that anyone wishing to be a Conservative candidate at the next election must renounce net zero, which, I mean, is quite something if you think about it.
Be careful what I say, because I applied for the candidates list. But look, I think...
let's go to Rachel then, shall we?
Look, I genuinely believe that we have to do something about the climate, but I do agree with Kemi that Mrs May passing her law hasn't really done anything positive. And you can use business to actually do what we all want to do. And we do need to actually make progress. But we don't want to, I don't personally want to have too many issues where we're having a black and white pass. But on this one, I will listen to my leader.
Rachel.
I mean, look, we're right in the thick of this crisis, aren't we? And you can't deny, really, the seriousness of the threat that's facing us. I mean, 2,700 people have died in the heat in Britain. Europe is heating up twice as fast as the rest of the world. You know, the Cairngorms are on fire. There are fires in Sussex. There are fires in Greater Manchester. Like, it is happening, and it's here. And you know, Andy Burnham's come in and says he cares about our safety and about our thriving economy, and yet has done nothing on this. Worse than nothing, is still talking about drilling in the North Sea. I mean, the idea that the cost is the cost of not doing anything. You know, it is absolutely incredible how much the bills are hiked by, oil shock. That's what ordinary people have to pay on their bills whenever there's a price hike with the oil. What we need is so much more investment in renewables so that we have energy sovereignty, so that bills go down, and we're investing in the industry of the future.
But we've
the
done brilliantly on
economy.
renewables.
And it's the fastest growing part of the economy.
Yeah.
So why not just do more and more and more of that?
But
We
need jobs in Aberdeen as well, don't we?
I think about 27 jobs are created by Rosebank. So we need hundreds and
my party won a by-election
jobs.
because of Aberdeen and because of jobs. And the reality is, that is a big issue. Talk to Scottish people. That is what they care about. And we can't just say, you and I are both
you need
Southerners.
A just transition.
We don't want to actually say there's no jobs for people.
You need a just transition. We need training. We need people to transition to the economy of the future, so they're having jobs into the future, because that will help our economy.
But isn't it dangerous to put all your eggs in one basket in terms of energy security? Because you don't believe in nuclear power either, do you?
Well, not new nuclear power. I think there is already nuclear power. Nuclear power stations are already happening. We would use that for sure.
But do you get what I'm saying? If you put all your eggs in the renewables basket, I mean, let's say in 10 years' time there is no wind. In 10 years' time, sort of solar power is different.
Well, there's no sun and there's no wind in 10 years' time.
I know. I'm giving you an extreme example.
We're going to have some very serious problems if there's no sun or wind.
I mean, I was going to say that would be the least of our problems. If that happens, we're done.
But we used to have an energy supply which consisted of coal, nuclear, renewables, and all sorts of other things.
So we can have wind, waves, solar.
Yeah, but I'm not saying we shouldn't. Absolutely, I'm in favour of renewables, but you cannot rely just on one energy source.
No, but I'm not saying you should. I've just named a few. But the cost to our economy of not tackling climate change is phenomenal. The drop in productivity through these heat waves is appalling. We have to keep it in check, and then we have to adapt. Like, what amazes me is how the government is not talking about climate adaptation. We need to be talking about maximum temperatures in your place of work. When you talk about how we insulate our buildings so that they're warm in the winter and they're cool in the summer, like, we're just not working on the biggest crisis of our time. 2,700 deaths. Where are the emergency meetings? Where are the briefings?
And Kieran, there's a real opportunity for business here, isn't there? Sort of, if you look at, what Rachel just said about, all of the different things that, the opportunities that are coming up in terms of combating sort of heat in the workplace and making workplaces more amenable. I mean, that's quite a big opportunity for people in that sector.
Sure, I mean, absolutely. If there's any technological innovation is going to hopefully drive jobs and business opportunities. But I think your wider point is actually quite salient in that this can't dominate the energy security conversation. We need to be well diversified. As a country, I mean, this is incredibly serious, and we have the highest cost of energy in Europe. We also, and cheap energy is the basis for our economy to be able to grow. Look at manufacturing. We have no credible industrial policy at the moment. Everything is very precarious, and I think it's a little bit backwards looking, believing in. You can see, for example, the wind turbines across the landscape. I think many of these are already obsolete. Some will be going forward in short
What's
time.
Backwards is drilling in the North Sea, where there's hardly any oil and gas left anyway, making this massive investment.
We export all of our CO2 emissions at the moment.
Numerous other sources of energy, really. I mean, I think to suggest renewables is just one source. I mean, if you start to look at it, I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of data centres, but the amount of waste heat they produce and taking the heat off from energy from waste plants and having heat networks is one whole area. You then got air source heat pumps, water source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps. These are all using latent heat in the air. And the one that doesn't go out at any time, obviously the sun does go away at night and sometimes the wind doesn't blow, is true. But the tide, I mean, unless someone moves the moon, Ian, which I haven't heard anyone's planning to.
I agree.
So there will always be tidal power. So that is a big... Yes,
that's not right, because, I mean, if tidal power was the answer to all of our problems, wouldn't all, what was it, was it the Cardiff Bay scheme in the 1990s?
Yes.
Barrage. Why didn't that happen?
Three times of what Hinkley would have cost.
Exactly.
It might do, but there are other ones coming down the track. I mean, there's as at least two people have said on the panel already, there's always innovation, and I think making sure that when you bring in something new, that you don't then create another problem. And I think that was what was recognised with the barrage.
But just to finish this off, though, Rachel, we have the highest energy costs in Europe, I believe, for industry and indeed for consumers. That is not sustainable for a growing economy, is it? I mean, isn't that something that the Green Party needs to address?
Well, we need to stop. I mean, you talked about
has anyone run a
ordinary
business in the Green Party?
Yes,
or the Labour government.
Oh, yeah, genuinely. I mean, I'm asking a serious question. I mean, Jonathan Reynolds hasn't. He's the business secretary. He was not. I mean, anyway.
There's lots of business people in the Green Party. There's lots of business people who really want to build a fair society for tomorrow, and that's actually part of what they create wealth because they want to give back and create a great society for tomorrow. And actually investing in the fastest growing bit of the economy, which happens to be the net zero section, is a really smart business move. Look at B Corp businesses; they are doing incredibly well.
Sorry, what's that?
A B Corp business?
No.
They're like a kind of business where they're purpose driven. They look after the planet, they treat employees well, and they also can make profit. They can do well, and they can also do it in a way that benefits
a normal business. Yeah.
They're called B Corp. If you look it up, and you have to pass certain criteria tests.
You talk as if sort of normal businesses go out not to treat their employees well.
No, but some do and some don't. So some have a massive pay differential between the people at the top and the people at the bottom. Others have everybody paid fairly and they do well, and maybe people all get a share in that momentum. If the company's doing well, everyone benefits, but also they take care of the environment. We would have a polluter pay model so that it's not, in fact, you're talking about the poorer people shouldn't pay for the effects of climate change. 100% agree. The polluter should pay. And we should stop subsidising oil and gas, which we are doing, and effectively funding fossil fuels. We should make sure that, the windfall tax is really tight. So when there's a big oil price shock because of an international war, someone isn't making a profit out of it, because those things can stop the bills going up as much as they do.
We're going to move on to a different subject. But let's first get the news headlines on LBC at 8:31 with Matt Hewitt.
President Emmanuel Macron says France is facing its most difficult situation since the Second World War because of wildfires. Flames are nearing Bordeaux, with crews in a race against time before a heat wave and stronger winds set in. There's a warning a fourth heatwave this year for the UK will further increase pressure on water resources, following very little rainfall during July. At least 5 people have died in water during the recent warm conditions, including a father and daughter in Cornwall. And Andy Burnham has announced he intends to visit Ukraine soon. He says he'll follow up with partners on his meeting in Portsmouth with President Volodymyr Zelensky. LBC weather, heavy rain for Northern Ireland this evening, moving into southern and western Scotland tonight. Lighter rain for the rest of Scotland and then northern England and Wales. Lows of 9 to 15 degrees.
LBC.
For whoever they want to be in life, give them a great start with Well Kid. Carefully balanced, great-tasting vitamins and minerals for 4 to 12-year-olds with specific nutrients such as zinc and vitamin D, which support normal immune system function. The Well Kid range from Vitabiotics, from Boots, pharmacies and vitabiotics.com.
From countryside escapes to seaside breaks, and plenty of open roads in between, there's a Mazda for every kind of summer. Get 0% APR on selected models when ordered by the 30th of September and keep your mind on the really important stuff, like trying to eat that ice cream before it melts. Search Mazda. Available on PCP when financed by Mazda Financial Services by the 31st of December 2026. Indemnities may be required. Terms apply. See website.
Imagine sweeping through green fields, floating 5 feet above ground. Sun on your face as you slide by on track to your destination. Not a care in the world as you simply lean back. And before you know it, you're there. This is how travel should feel. And on our trains, it does. Avanti West Coast. Feel good travel.
Take Irish ferries from Dover to Calais, where your pet travels in the pet lounge. You'll be barking not to. Irish ferries. See travel differently.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
8:34. Our panel consists of Kieran Fothergill, a businessman who leads companies in the engineering, cybersecurity and hospitality sectors. Now, they're 3 very, very different sectors. How do you juggle that?
Well, with great difficulty. But no, I spend my time equally across the 3 areas.
And where did you start?
The engineering business is the core business. It's lifts and escalators. We're a national business, the largest privately owned national lift company, and it's been in my family for 6 generations on the same site in Stockton-on-Tees since 1854, and in my family since 1891.
They had lifts in 1854.
They didn't. We were in mine shaft lifting equipment originally.
Oh, right.
Taking things up and down the mines. And then that moved into marine docking systems. And then the technology evolved in the 1880s. We exhibited in Philadelphia, the World Fair, with the first auto push button lift. Wow. And from there, things developed.
And cybersecurity, I always find that quite sort of exciting, but it's a bit of a forbidding area.
I find it quite nerve-wracking, to be honest with you. One minute you're in the right area, and then suddenly it all changes, and you haven't.
So what are you doing? Providing services for companies to protect themselves from cyber attacks?
So a managed service. So it's a 24/7 securities operations centre that we run in Glasgow, all UK, and we've got analysts there monitoring client networks across public and private sector 24/7 in a secure room, using a range of different licenses from different technology providers.
And in the hospitality sector, what do you do there?
Run a hospitality business in Scotland, so we can talk. There's plenty to talk about in hospitality at the moment, and how difficult that is, and the number of casual staff, for example, that we're struggling to recruit now. 75,000 Saturday jobs have gone, for example, because of a dual impact of employers' national insurance going up and the minimum wage going up. Why would you employ a young person now when they cost exactly the same as someone who's got 10 years' experience?
Well, we may have a question on that later. Who knows? Right. Did I introduce everybody else? I can't remember. Tony Devonish, Conservative member of Westminster City Council, Leonie Cooper, Labour member of the London Assembly, and Rachel Millward, Deputy Leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. It's about time you united with Scotland, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit silly having separate parties.
There are close friends.
I'm sure they are. Right, Martin in Shrewsbury says, should land be taxed? In New York State, for example, the state imposes a property tax on landowners to subsidise the local schools. As a UK landowner who owns forest land in New York, I must admit I don't mind paying it. Now, Andy Burnham has suggested potential reforms to council tax which could be based on the value of a property or the value of the land it is built on, which would be likely to mean homeowners in southern England pay more tax than people owning properties in other parts of the country. Well, any reform of property tax is going to be controversial. Leonie, what's your view on this?
Wow, this is like such a hot potato and nobody has touched it since the last valuation was done in 1991. So that tells you how much of a hot potato it is. I think he wants to open the discussion, though, because it's clear that stamp duty probably actually depresses the market because you pay it when you're buying a property. So, in that case, I might just do an extension on my house rather than buying somewhere new. So that doesn't help the market with people moving from one kind of home ownership into another, or even moving into home ownership at all. Then you've got this weird system with council tax where the bands finish as well. So if your property is worth £300,000, you pay the same amount of council tax as if your property is worth 3 million or 30 million. So that's a bit weird as well. And then the revaluation hasn't been done since 1991. And then you've also got business rates where they have just revalued. And that, as talking about impacts on business, has also had some difficulties for business. And I think if you're going to do something in this area of changing taxes and looking at land valuation tax or whatever, I think you've got to do all of those areas at the same time. And I am not saying, Ian, that I've got the answer to that. I think it's really complicated.
But also, don't voters have a right to vote on that sort of thing? Shouldn't that be for the next election manifesto rather than something they do now?
Well, to be honest with you, I think it would take that long to come forward with something and then get a consultation going so that at the next election that people could say whether it was a system that they wanted or not. And we really do know how controversial this has been, because when Margaret Thatcher brought in the poll tax, there were literally poll tax riots, and it was then promptly replaced with the community charge. So it's a fraught area. And in particular, if you're going to change things around and maybe have people in the south paying more, then how long a transitional period do you give people? Because I just don't think it's right to say to people, oh, you're paying £1,000 this year, next year you're going to pay £5,000. For most people, that's not really how their money works. So I think you've got to think really carefully about what you want to bring in and how you then implement it. And I think there has to be a transitional period.
Rachel, I'm sure the Green Party has policy on this.
Yeah, we do think council tax is regressive. I think most people would agree at the very least that the last time property was valued, that determined what the tax level was.
35 years ago.
Was 35 years ago. I mean, property prices are completely different. So I think we can probably all agree that that is bound to be unfair. So I do think people with larger properties pay proportionately a lot less than people with smaller, and that's unfair. That's a regressive tax. We need people with the broader shoulders contributing the most. There's also the point that councils put the council tax up. You might have a ceiling to what you're allowed to do, but you do put it up. So you put it up depending on how much you need that for your services. You have more strain on your service provision the more deprived the area is. So actually, in a more deprived area, the council is more likely to have to put that tax up. So it's actually likely to be more poorer people who are paying more at the end of the day.
But what about this idea of a land value tax?
I think that's good. We're very pro that.
How would it work?
Oh, well, the nuts and bolts. I mean, basic principle is you pay a tax according to the value of the land that you have.
How do you get the cash? How do you get the cash to pay the tax?
How do you get the cash to pay the tax? Well, how do you get the cash?
So, for example, farmers don't pay business rates. So if they've got, say, 500 acres, there's got to be some mechanism. And inevitably, that's going to be another cost.
Well, and farming is very specific, and we need to address that, I think, really carefully, because farmers do have land, often don't have much income, and we desperately need them to help feed the country. It's a kind of very specific point. But I think it is overall, and it's something that we're working towards in the detail of our policy, but overall it is a fairer system, and it would, I think, really help us raise more money for our public services and the rest of it, and be really good for the economy. But it would definitely be fairer so that the poorer people had burden taken off them, which is what we want. Which is what the economy wants as well, because we want them to be able to spend more.
Tony?
Well, I listened to Andy Burnham's interview with Laura Kuenssberg today, and he managed to basically speak for 50 minutes without saying very much. He's really good at that. But the reality is, we already have the highest tax population. And Keir Starmer, when he was opposition leader, said the Tories had taxes too high. And for once, he was right. So what did he do when he came in? He put taxes up. And now Burnham's going to put even more taxes up. And the reality is, I can tell you, in central London, we're already being whacked by taxes for everything. The latest one came out last December, where Rachel Reeves put out just before Christmas to mainly 5 central London boroughs that you're going to cut your grant by over £100 million. That's 46% of our grant over the next 4 years. Now, we've got a choice. We can either slash public services, or we can put council tax up through the roof. And we're considering what we're going to do at the moment, and we're consulting the public, as we should do. But on top of that, Burnham is coming up with numerous other suggestions. And our residents are already rather fed up with tax increases under the last Conservative government, the last Labour government, and now this Labour government. And the reality is, you'll keep putting tax up as much as you want. People will leave the country. The wealth creators are already leaving the country. And when I talk to people, and I was talking to a very successful businessman last week, and he said literally all his friends, and he's the £500 million level of wealth. He says he's one of the last few that's still living in my patch. And
Rachel, you're shaking your head.
Well, this is in this country, we're the 6th largest economy in the world.
5th now.
Oh, 5th largest.
We were the 4th.
We've overtaken India.
And the top 50 families have the same wealth as the bottom 50%. We do need to stop this hoarding of wealth at the top. We do need that money to circle around our economy.
Yeah, we go abroad. Exactly.
No, I don't agree with that. I think people are much more patriotic than that. I think people love living here. They've got family here. Their assets might be actual buildings that are here. And actually, I think it's a massive privilege to pay tax. I think it is something you can be really excited. If you've created enough wealth that you can provide, for
Rachel,
primary schools,
we're not
for
talking
hospitals,
about
you should feel really proud of that.
Rachel,
You should maybe have a word with Zach then about paying council
Rachel, we're not
tax.
just talking about...
He's desperate too. The council isn't giving him a blinking answer. It's been months, seriously.
Rachel, we're not just talking about billionaires. The average person in central London now owns a house that is worth 6 figures, low 6 figures. And those people are going to be taxed and taxed and taxed.
No, I mean,
and
to be fair, our wealth
if you
tax
are a
wouldn't.
70 or 80-year-old resident who had the house when it was literally worth tens or early hundreds of thousands of pounds, and now it is worth several million pounds,
I mean, for the record,
you are going to be absolutely
understand
damaged
that.
under Mr. Burnham.
Well, our wealth tax, just for the record, is 10 million and above, it's 1%, and $1 billion and above, it's 2%. It's a very small percentage, but it does allow more of a building of a better society for all of us.
I don't think you should judge the whole of London on the basis of Mayfair and Belgravia, where you represent Tony.
That's a good point.
I do talk
they
to
are
people all over
slightly
London and the rest of the
different.
country, Leon.
Yeah, but
even Wandsworth.
There are parts of London where property prices are not quite as high.
And there are
as
people
Mayfair and Belgravia,
who are
let's face
renting.
it.
There are a lot of people who are renting,
Lots of
and they need the burden taken off them. And that's the point: is we need to be reducing tax to the people who are struggling.
Lots of people don't own.
Before we go to a break, Rachel, I've got to ask you about this latest thing that's occurred today with Zach Polanski, where he collaborated on an Instagram video or picture which showed a man with a T-shirt with a guillotine on it, which said, "We're only making plans for Nigel." Now, on what planet should the leader of a political party, whichever political party, collaborate on a video like that?
I think your answer is
Sorry, it's a picture.
It was a picture. It was, for the record, it was, you get a carousels of people, like they were at an event last night and there's all these event photos, and it's sort of, I don't know what number it was, but it's far down. You flick through lots of the photos before you get to it. And I think clearly what's happened is Zach didn't get to the point of looking at that and noting the image on this T-shirt. As soon as it was raised, as soon as it was brought to his attention, he deleted it. Zach has spoken out really strongly against political violence. He's been subject to threats himself. He takes it really seriously. We all do. It's not a funny subject. It's actually horrendous. And in this, in the climate at the moment with the horrific murder of Anne Widdecombe, none of us want to make those jokes. It was absolutely an error. He took it down straight away.
Nigel Farage has said the police should arrest him.
I mean, the police will make that decision. but I've just explained how it was, and the moment it was brought to his attention, it wasn't a video, it wasn't the first image, it's on a T-shirt, on an image once you flick through it, and it was a mistake. He took it down immediately.
He has taken it down.
I mean, it's not a laughing matter. Like, I just want to be really clear that Zach doesn't find that funny, and nor do I.
But he hasn't apologised for it.
I mean, has he not? He took it down.
No. Yeah, but it's not quite the same, is it?
I think the point is that there's no way that he intended to share an image that incited violence in any way, even a jokey way, because it isn't funny at the moment.
No,
Forever.
absolutely. Right, more questions to come, including our famous fun question at the end, which Kieran's really looking forward to. It's 8:47.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Teenagers claiming sickness benefits for anxiety. More than 2/3 of them on the upper tier get £194 a week. Now, a 16-year-old working 12 hours a week, that's the legal maximum during term time, on the under 18 minimum wage, will take home around £94 a week. So work really does not pay, does it? What do you think?
I think we need to be looking at where we are going to provide the work for these people.
I've just noticed a very big increase in young people who are working the system in order to get the benefits.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Summer with my kids is paddling pools, barbecues, making those lifelong memories. But that's not every family's summer. We hear a lot about winter hardship, but for families facing poverty, summer can be one of the hardest times. Schools close, free lunches stop, the pressure builds. Bernardo's gets it. They're working alongside families with practical help to take some of that weight off. To find out more about their important work and how you can help, search Bernardo's.
LBC supports this message. Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip. Do more this summer, hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day, every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
You can now get Sky, HBO Max, Disney Plus, Netflix and Hey You together in one subscription. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, take your seats on your sofas, brew your cuppers and turn your phones to silent. Because the world of ultimate entertainment is about to begin. Sit back, relax and head to sky.com to find out more.
Shh! It's starting!
Requires Sky Stream and Sky Ultimate TV subscription. Minimum broadband speed of 30 megabits per second recommended. 18+.
Payday! You know what that means, don't you, Tim?
Yes, I do. Create a spreadsheet for bills, savings, groceries.
Or we can literally do anything else. Because Monzo sorts your salary for you.
Anything, you say?
Anything.
Great. Let's create a spreadsheet and catalogue our socks by colour, thickness, elasticity, fibre content, length, wooliness...
OK, I'll order pizza.
Monzo. Get busy living. Monzo current account required. UK resident 16+. T's and C's apply.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
10 to 9, Rachel Milboard, Leonie Cooper, Tony Devonish and Kieran Fothergill with us answering your questions. Here's one from, it's a caller, Martin in Doncaster. Martin, what would you like to ask?
Hello, Paddle. My question is this. With Putin threatening to mobilise another 300 to 500,000 more troops to fight in Ukraine, what more can be done for Ukraine won't bring this war to an end?
Right, I'll translate that because, yet again, Martin, your phone line's terrible from Doncaster. With Putin threatening to mobilise another 300,000 troops in Ukraine, what more can be done for Ukraine to bring this to an end? Now, the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, has been in the UK today, meeting Andy Burnham for the first time at a Royal Navy base in Portsmouth. Goodness me, Andy Burnham in the south, who would have thought? And the Prime Minister has told him that he can count on the UK for as long as it takes. Kieran.
Well, I think we've led the way in terms of support for Ukraine. I'm incredibly proud of what this country's done under successive governments. And I think we need to continue, be resolute, be steadfast, stand by them, coordinate with our European allies and continue to invest in the defence of their sovereignty.
Tony?
I don't know if you watch, I don't normally plug Channel 5 programmes, but Boris Johnson went to Ukraine in February, and he really does show in this programme, it's absolutely a brilliant 50 minutes of TV. He shows how innovation and engineering excellence has been used to have products, literally often household products, turned into drone parts. And it's amazing. Bits of water industry engineering pipe turned into drone parts. And I think we've got to allow our engineers at our best universities and all our engineering companies to support the British Army, who are there in many ways behind the scenes, and do everything we can do to absolutely use our innovation and engineering excellence to beat Putin.
Leonie.
Yeah, apparently that's why they were in Portsmouth today. Zelensky was there with Andy Burnham, and we are going to release the IP, the intellectual property of an innovation that we've come up with, that we've been letting them use, but now we're going to just say, actually, if you want to make these things, just knock yourselves out and go on and do it. And I think, what more can we do other than carry on giving them the support? And they are doing a great job, actually, the Ukrainians. They are not just defending Ukraine, but they have also been taking the war to Russia, and it is hard not to want them to succeed. And I think if any other countries on that eastern border of Europe that have a border with Russia were in the same situation, I'm pretty sure we'd be supporting them for the same reason.
Rachel?
Yeah, I think we can feel proud of our response here. And I think, from the support we've given to Ukraine in terms of them holding Russia back, but also in terms of the Homes to Ukraine scheme and things like I mentioned earlier, I think we've done really well, and we should feel very proud of it.
What more can we do, though? Because in a way, Ukraine is fighting the war for the whole of Europe, I think. And you get the feeling that because of other things that are going on in the world, Iran, etc., Ukraine has dropped down the agenda a little.
I think we have also been doing quite a lot in terms of trying to tackle them in terms of the Russians coming up through the north and then coming down into the Atlantic, and we're kind of on the forefront of that. I mean, that's, if you look at the globe from above, you can see why Trump suddenly started saying Greenland belongs to me, which obviously it doesn't. It belongs to Denmark. It's part of Denmark. But if you look at Iceland, it's the Greenland, Iceland and the UK, and we have been at the forefront of tackling the Russians there as well. And I think that the rest of the world just has to carry on supporting Ukraine directly, which we have been doing and the French have been doing, and getting the other Europeans to step up, but also where we see the Russians are a threat. We just heard that they were firing off Plymouth. They were in international waters, but only 30 miles out to sea. They're going to continue to be a threat, and we've got to tackle them wherever they are.
And let's not forget Poland in all of this, because I think Poland has been absolutely heroic in the support that it's given to Ukraine. And let's also think of the Baltic states, because they really are on the front line. Right. Thank you, Martin. Nathaniel says, how would you pay to fix the social care system? How about scrapping the triple lock for starters? And we've literally got less than a minute each on this. I mean, obviously, it's a very complicated question to answer in less than a minute. Rachel?
The social care system is broken, and if we can't look after the vulnerable people in our society, who are we? I think it's a real indicator of just how broken the whole thing is and how much system change we need. I think we need to totally reform the way we raise tax. We talked about that a bit today, but I do think it's hard to pick this out as one thread, but we do need a free social care service. It is crazy that you get free support if you are facing cancer, but not if you're facing dementia, for example. We have to have this. The NHS can't really survive unless we have this social care. So it will take wholesale system change, really. It shows how big the problem is. I mean, yeah, we could move over to the triple lock. The important thing is that we are, again, making sure...
Because you're the only party that actually has said it thinks triple lock has outlived its usefulness, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. We have. That is a policy. I think our policy is double lock. But I think the important thing on principle always for us is that the poorest get the most support and those who have the broader shoulders contribute the most.
Okay, Tony?
Well, Burnham actually U-turned on his big pledge today on the Koonsberg interview. He basically said he may or may not do it during this Parliament, which I think was real moral cowardice. The reality is Andrew Dunlop was 2012, 2013. Lots of our experts have looked at this. If the Prime Minister he's got 3 years basically, can't actually agree this and get it through, what is the point of a so-called radical government?
Kieran?
I think the triple lock is something that does need to be looked at. I don't know whether it's economically sustainable going forward, and for how long. I think it's it's one of the buckets in terms of our expenditure as a nation where we can really make a difference. It's not just messing around on the fringes. It's a real pot where we could make some structural reforms. So why not look at it? And in terms of social care, I'd agree with Rachel. We need to look at how it works. It can't be that councils are paying up to 80% of their budget on social care. Again, not sustainable. We need some reform.
Leonie?
Yeah, it definitely needs to be reform. I completely disagree with what Tony was just saying about Andy Burnham's interview with Laura Kuenssberg. It had actually been pushed into the long grass by Keir Starmer with this very, very long timescale attached to Louise Casey's review. He's actually shortened that back up again, which I think is the right thing to do. And then I think once the results of that review come out, I think having a national conversation so that people understand that not everything is free at the point when they need it, because a lot of people still do expect things to be free, and then having the discussion about, well, how do we all want to pay for that together, because at the moment the system is completely unfair, and some people end up having to spend all their life savings and not being able to live really, because they're having to pay for all their social care, and it's not good enough.
Right, let's finish off with a fun question from Gordon in Hampstead, which contains a phrase I've never heard before. So-called Zara death pants, that is the phrase I haven't heard before, are an example of the wide-legged fashion that is... That's just gone off my screen, thank you very much. That is currently vogue and which is leading to trip injuries. Have you ever been prepared to risk safety for the sake of fashion? Rachel?
I did just Google what these look like, and actually I do quite want a pair, so I might try it. But I do also trip over my pyjamas, so I do know the issue with wide leg things. I've had a couple of near misses on the stairs and been very
Simple
concerned.
solution, don't wear them.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. But women have been risking their health.
Otherwise we could have a Zach Polanski moment.
Women have risked their safety all the time wearing ridiculous heels, let's face it. So it's happened a lot.
Tony?
I'm afraid I wear a boring white shirt and a boring blue jacket, and I stick to what I know in terms of fashion.
So conservative.
With a very dapper handkerchief in your pocket.
With my older daughter, she will look at my fashion sense and say, no.
She's a wise woman. Kieran?
Well, I have to
look at
admit,
that tie.
I did once squeeze into a pair of lederhosen at the Oktoberfest, which wasn't particularly good. Wasn't particularly good for my circulation, but I did look good amongst the Germans.
Well, I spent a long time in Germany. I've never worn a pair of lederhosen, contrary to popular rumour. Leonie?
I can see them on now. What do you say? No, I have been a fashion victim, as it used to be, rather than Zara death pants. And I did used to wear very, very, very high heels with platforms and stagger around. And they were probably about the nearest I got to something that might have been hazardous to my health. I have never worn lederhosen, though.
Well, in the 1970s, I wore massive flares with wedges.
Good.
Because that was the look of the time, and I carried it off quite well, I think. Anyway, thank you all very much indeed for coming on the panel tonight. On tomorrow's panel, we have the fine jewellery businesswoman Kiki McDonough, former Conservative Cabinet Minister Dame Theresa Villas, transport journalist Christian Wolmar, he's got a new book out, plus the former Jeremy Corbyn advisor James Schneider. So that's tomorrow on LBC. Now, coming up in the next hour, we're going to be joined by Dame Andrea Leadsom. You may well know that she founded the 1001 Critical Days Foundation, and they've conducted research which shows that babies under the age of 2 are now using screens at levels that far exceed current health guidance. This is a pressing public health issue because the foundations of future health outcomes are laid down in the time from pregnancy to age 2. It seems incredible to me that children at the age of 2 are spending any time on screens at all, but apparently many parents are allowing them to do that. Well, Andrea's going to tell us all about that and what she wants done about it. The number to call 0345 6060 973.
On your radio, on the LBC app. And
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, officials say a wildfire encroaching on Bordeaux is contained but could flare up again, as France's president says the situation's the most difficult since World War II. Hundreds of thousands of homes have been evacuated and huge areas of land scorched. French President Emmanuel Macron's visited a control centre.
The priority, obviously, is lives. When you need to move to save lives, you move people. When you need to sacrifice forest or sometimes equipment to save lives, we will do that.
In the UK, firefighters are still tackling fires in the Cairngorms and Peak District national parks. At least 5 people have died after getting into difficulty in water this weekend. It says the UK prepares for a 4th possible heat wave this week, with heat health alerts in parts of central, southern and eastern England upgraded to amber. Details of some of the 67 offences admitted by a Hull funeral director have been heard during the start of a 5-day sentencing hearing for Robert Bush. The body of Natalie Smith's grandfather, Norman Bridger, was found at the funeral home in Hull 11 months after he died, when his family believed they'd had him cremated.
He was a big part of my life, and it was a big part of his great-grandchildren's life. They understand what's happened, but my nan doesn't, because she's 95 and has dementia. It's upsetting that after his long life that he would have such an awful end.
The Metropolitan Police say they're conducting inquiries after Nigel Farage reported a post on Zach Polanski's Instagram account. It featured a cartoon guillotine beneath the text, "We're only making plans for Nigel." It's since been removed. The Green Party of England and Wales say their leader clicked accept to be tagged in a post with 20 images, not all of which he had seen. Donald Trump says the Americans are having good talks with Iran.
We'll see what happens. There's a good chance that something could happen. And if it does, good. If it doesn't, we go back to doing what we were doing 2 days ago.
Washington abruptly suspended a near 2-week bombing campaign on Saturday in the US president's latest U-turn in the war. And the Wildlife Trust say Bill Oddie's passion and commitment to the natural world leave a lasting legacy. Their vice president, also a TV presenter and comedian, has died, aged 85. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 45 points at 10,781. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.17. LBC weather, heavy rain for Northern Ireland this evening, moving into southern and western Scotland tonight. Lighter rain for the rest of Scotland and then northern England and Wales, lows of 9 to 15 degrees. Rain dying out in the north tomorrow, sunny in the south, highs of 17 to 29 Celsius. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Matt Hewitt.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Very good evening. It's 4 minutes past 9 on LBC. I'm Iain Dale here with you until 10. One of the regular guests on my programme, really, I suppose, over the last 10 years has been Andrea Leadsom, one of my favourite people in politics. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say it anyway.
Reciprocated.
And I mean, you're obviously a cabinet minister for a long time, but since you've left Parliament, you've founded the 1001 Critical Days Foundation. And even when you came back into the government under Rishi Sunak, when you were a junior minister at the Department of Health, you were specialising in early years development. It's been a real passion of yours, and that's what we're going to concentrate on in our discussion in this hour. And we do want you to contribute to this because, before we get on to the main issue, which is screen time for 2-year-olds, which I can't even believe I'm saying that, but I am, and that is what we're going to be talking about. Tell us why you wanted to found the 1001 Critical Days Foundation and why this whole area is so important to you.
Well, it's been my passion for 30 years, but essentially it's because human beings are unique in the animal kingdom in the extent of their underdevelopment at birth. If you think about a cat or an elephant, it's born, it stands up, it walks off. Then think of humans, us, we're born and we lie there and we're totally hugely vulnerable. And the reason for that is it's evolutionary. So when we came out of the trees and hips had to get narrower, so babies' heads, which had been bigger with bigger brains, had to get smaller. So you either had to choose smaller brains or more premature. So humans are born about 2 years premature. So during that first period, up until the age of 2, the brain is putting on about 1 million neural connections a second in that period of life. So those are stimulated and developed by the loving attention of adult carers. And a lot of it is called serve and return. So baby smiles at you, you smile back. Baby sticks its tongue out, you do it back. You say, coochie coo, aren't you lovely, peekaboo, things like that. And that is literally stimulating the baby's neural connections. And in particular, between 6 months and 18 months, the baby's prefrontal cortex puts on a huge growth spurt. That's the part of the brain that enables our social and empathetic skills to develop. So it's what differentiates us from animals. That's between 6 months and 18 months. And the peak period for language development is at 8 months, long before most babies are even babbling, let alone speaking. So actually, it's such a crucial period. And in my view, governments right across the world have missed this fact. 200 years ago, governments decided to educate 5-year-olds instead of sending them to be chimney sweeps or coal miners. And that was a game changer for the world. And it still doesn't happen, but at least the commitment to it is there. But no government has ever thought, do you know what? If we actually supported parents and carers more to give their babies the best start in life, then we would have children who are school ready.
And having been a cabinet minister, I think most people were quite surprised when you went back into government as a junior minister and at the Department of Health, really because of what you've just been saying.
Yes.
Did you find any institutional resistance to the type of ideas that you were putting forward?
Not really, no, because for 2 years prior to that, I was out of government from 2020 till 2022. And in that time, Boris made me his early years advisor to the government. So during COVID lockdown, I was doing a lot of research that culminated in the vision for the 1001 critical days, which is the period from pregnancy to the age of 2, which is when the building blocks for lifelong emotional and physical well-being are laid down. You get that one chance. If you get it wrong, it's so difficult to fix things later on.
Well, let's go to the issue of the day. Rachel Millward, who was on Cross Question, you probably passed in the corridor, she's deputy leader of the Green Party. When she heard me say that you were coming on, she said to me, well, of course, there's been research that shows that modern-day babies are smiling less, because their parents, while they're walking their pram or whatever, they're looking at their screens rather than having this sort of slightly meaningless conversation with a baby. So there's less interaction between the two. Is she right on that?
Well, I haven't seen research specifically about babies smiling later, but what is absolutely true is that babies thrive and develop according to that interaction, that social interaction, usually with parents, could be with, a big brother or sister or auntie next door or something. But yes, it is the social interaction that develops the baby's brain and neural connections. And so those are so crucial. And in fact, there is an experiment called the still face experiment, which was actually invented in the 70s, long before smartphones, which is where mum would sit with baby and play normally, smiling, chatting, and then would look away and expressionlessly and not meet the baby's eyes. And what you can see is that the baby starts to sort of go, oh, mum, what's up? In babbling and poking and trying to wave and attract attention. And if mum carries on doing that, the baby gets very, very upset and stressed. And then when mum turns back and goes, oh, you're all right, darling, the baby recovers. And that was an experiment that shows how much babies respond and need social interaction.
So tell us about this research that you're publishing today. You've commissioned it to look at the effects of screen times on young babies and up to 2 years old. Now, for old fossils like me, it was quite a shock to discover that 2-year-olds actually had any screen time at all.
Well, of course, the global advice, the government's advice and World Health Organization's advice is no screen time is suitable for under twos. But the reality is screens exist, older siblings use them, parents use them, and parents have to get on with their day job, put the washing on, finish work, etc. So it's actually very easy. It's a very easy choice to sort of, stick a screen in front of a baby and let that babysit them. But what this research, it was a global systematic review. We actually published it a couple of weeks ago now. And it was looking at all of the research from right across the world into the prevalence of screen use by under twos and the sort of impact it was having. And what we discovered was actually really shocking, which is that 70% of under twos get some screen time every day, and that rises to about 2.5 hours for a significant number of babies by the age of 2, and that
presumably because the parents give them the screen.
Well, exactly, but the point is the parents don't know otherwise, and that sort of takes us on to what are we going to do about it, because of course educating parents is so crucial. But just the statistics of the prevalence of screen use, 1 in 10 babies goes to sleep hugging a device, and parents have said you have to literally grab it out of their little sleeping arms, after they've gone to sleep. And of course, parents do that because they want it to be to distract the baby for a short time so they can get on with things. Some parents, when we launched this research, we had a mum who is herself a personal trainer, very outdoorsy person, who was telling us that when her baby was born, she was told by other parents, oh, you have to get your baby to watch this fruit thing on screen because it develops their brains. And she was trying to get her baby to watch this and the baby wasn't interested. And she was feeling guilty, thinking she wasn't developing her baby's brain. But the absolute opposite is the case. And what this global research shows is that babies given significant amounts of screen time, actually it disturbs their sleep. As we know, for us, if we're doom scrolling late at night, you can't sleep, can you? You can't relax. And it's the same is true with babies. So parents giving their baby a screen as a soother is doing the exact opposite. But also much more significantly and importantly is this cognitive delay, speech delay, babies with excessive screen time demonstrating some behaviours that look autistic in their types of behaviours, i.e. not making eye contact. No one's saying that screen time causes autism, but nevertheless, some of those behaviours are being seen in babies that watch screens a lot. And also potential links to myopia, because babies who are gazing at a screen for a long period of time when they should be looking around the room and making eye contact with humans, but they're gazing at a screen, it's not good for the developing eyes. And so that can cause later eye problems, obesity problems, where babies are watching screens and just eating, older babies. Who have been weaned and who are just eating without thinking about their hunger cues and so on. So there's a huge amount that we've learnt now that is quite troubling about early screen time use.
And what are they watching on these screens? Because presumably the parents are not just handing them a screen, they're actually programming what they're going to watch on the screen.
Yeah.
And I don't imagine there are that many things that are suitable for 1.5, 2-year-olds to watch. Teletubbies or stuff like that?
Well, this is really the big challenge. And what we've done in the 1001 Critical Days Foundation is we've put together a letter to all of the big tech companies and the big TV channels and the Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney, urging them to make clear to parents that there is no screen suitable for under twos, because whilst the content may be absolutely fine, as in not scary, but it's the developmental issue on the baby's developing brain. So it's very different from an older child where you're looking at the content. Is this too scary? Is it too exciting or whatever? For a baby, it's actually that ping, pop, all the time in your face. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just not good for you. It's not good developmentally. And unfortunately, because so many of the big tech companies say suitable for all ages, suitable from 0, suitable for all children, suitable for under 4s, however they phrase it, parents aren't going to sit there and Google it and do the 100 pages of research themselves before thinking, oh, well, they say it's fine, so it must be. So we're calling on the big tech companies to change that and make absolutely clear that it is only suitable for 2+.
Well, we'll talk in a moment about what parents can do themselves and what maybe they're doing at the moment without realising it, because I suspect that I bet there are loads of people listening to this programme right now thinking, oh my God, I'm doing that, or I did that.
Yeah.
And thinking, well, what, apart from not giving them any screen at all, and I suppose that is the solution, isn't it? But it's in some ways a simplistic solution, because if a child is used to having these screens, then suddenly you take them away. Well, that can be a problem as well. So we'll examine those issues in just a moment. And we'd love to hear from you as well. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. Do you understand what Andrea is saying about the dangers of screen time for under 2-year-olds? Maybe you are possibly a grandparent who's seen your daughter or your son just hand a screen to their 2-year-old. You're thinking, what on earth are you doing? Is it a lazy thing where you're so busy in your life that effectively the screen becomes your inbuilt babysitter and it just occupies the child while you're doing something else? That's not good parenting, is it? He says controversially.
Yeah, that's controversial.
17 minutes past 9.
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m.
Andy Burnham said to be considering making everyone pay a 10% inheritance tax to help fix the country's broken care system. Is that a cost that you would be happy to bear? Plus, with wildfires continuing to rage across Europe, why do our politicians seem so disinterested in tackling climate change? And more warnings today about the number of young people on benefits. What would your solution be?
Ben Kentish from 10 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip. Do more this summer. Hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
Gals, guys, get this. Primark's dropped their prices on hundreds of our favourites, like pure cotton PJs and men's cosy hoodies from £7, or women's cotton rich jeans from £9, and kids' extra comfy joggers just £3.50. There's only one word for that. Go on, show us how it's done. Iconic! Couldn't have put it better myself. Iconic value like never before at Primark.
Ever notice how some things are just standard? Traffic on the M4, standard. Meetings that could have been an email, standard. But at Aon, our cars are driving the new standard. The new Aon V has rapid charging, standard. Panoramic glass roof, standard. 8 years servicing, 8 years MOT, 8 years roadside assistance, and up to 8 years warranty. Also standard, thanks to our great 8 promise. Search Aon Auto to test drive today. T's and C's apply.
Iain Dale on LBC. Text 84850.
It's 90 minutes past 9 on LBC. Andrea Leadsom is here with me. Dame Andrea Leadsom.
Yeah. Pantomime dame.
You didn't have to accept it, did you?
True.
I've just deleted a text which I didn't mean to delete. Chris, can you get it back, please? Right, we've got several calls coming in. Let me take this text first, actually, because I thought it was quite interesting. From Mandy. Ian, when my firstborn in 1999 was 6 months old, he would love sitting in front of Wheel of Fortune. It was colourful. He was a great eater and sleeper, and he went on to be a scientist. That said, we would chat during our walks and outings. Screens have their place, and it depends on the show. That's Mandy in Maidenhead. That's kind of a generation or two ago, I suppose. And I suppose children have always been attracted by things that move and bright colours. But when it's permanently on a screen, sort of in their hands, it's very different to watching something on a screen momentarily that's sort of a few feet away, I guess.
Exactly. And I, likewise, my two boys were born in 1998 and 1995. So I can absolutely understand what Mandy's saying, that, you did, of course, have toys for them. This isn't about no toys. This is about the ping pop of a screen that is just feeding stuff back at you that doesn't interact with you at all. And it's about the absence of, it's taking away from that responsive time between parent and baby. And of course, the reality is, I used to, play all sorts building blocks was my boys' things when they were sort of 18 months up, and hammering things. And I mean, that likewise, that's not interactive between mum and baby, except that you are there with them, you're doing it with them. And that's not always possible. It is difficult for parents, but there are things. So, for example, just a mirror. A baby can sit there for ages in front of a mirror talking to this other baby that they're just looking at and thinking, what's that? You know?
My dog does that.
Oh, there you go.
I've got one dog that can't see himself in a mirror and the other one can.
Okay.
And the other one, my miniature schnauzer, he can see things on television, and if he sees a dog on the television, obviously he goes mad. But the other one can't see a television screen. It's really weird.
That is actually. But he can see, he just can't see.
Well, actually, his sight's going as well. But he's never been able to recognise things on a television screen, whereas Woody certainly does and lets you know it. Right, but this is not a dog phone-in, unfortunately. Let's go to Amber in Bourne in Lincolnshire. Hello, Amber.
Hello, Ian. Thank you for taking my call. I feel awful having heard Andrea speak about the research because I was that parent and I have had years of problems with my teenage son. I'm a single parent and I didn't have family around at all. I was completely on my own, and I was studying to be a teacher from when he was born, basically, and I went into the profession when he was 1. And we were sort of under the impression at the time that an iPad would be a great, educational sort of, get him doing some numbers.
What age was he at this point?
I would say he was probably somewhere about 18 months to 2 years. It was about 2. It was about 2 that he got an iPad. And it was a friend that bought it for him who was into the tech. And we have had nothing but problems with social interactions, autistic traits, although he's been told that he's borderline autistic, ADHD, which I have, and it's in the family, but his level of concentration is just, it even surprises me, how smart he is. And he's really smart. Went to a grammar school, but just couldn't survive there. Just had none of the skills, none of the social skills or anything to deal with it, and was out of school for 2.5, maybe 3 years. And he's still, he's currently sitting in our kitchen online. He's got a great group of friends online, but that is it. That is his life. His whole life is on gaming. And we have been, trust me, I have worked really, really hard the last 2 or 3 years and supported him. And we are having therapy, and he's getting a lot of support now, and he's doing okay. But
how old is he now?
He's 16. He's 16. He's had to go back a year, so he's looking at taking his GCSEs next year. But an extremely intelligent boy, and he will maybe come out with 4 or 5 GCSEs. That's if he can handle the stress of the exams and everything, which he's done quite well this year.
So, you sound to me as though you're sort of beating yourself up after hearing what Andrea said about the effects of screens on a sort of 18-month, 2-year-old, and you're thinking, well, was that part of the reason that he developed in the way that he did?
Absolutely. Yeah, don't get me wrong, you're always looking for a reason when you've got, send kids particularly. You're always looking for the kind of, why did it happen? But, it does just keep, the more and more I hear about social media, and I phoned you before about social media and the problems that he's had with it, but also the benefits that he now has from it because he's so isolated. At least he's got friends on there.
Yeah.
And a community on there that support him and are developing his social skills in some ways. But I feel awful the more and more I hear about it, and the more that I recognise the damage that the algorithms and the scrolling do. I've got 3 nephews, and they, you can just see them. But like the 2-year-old knows how to find the app. You just give him the phone. They just give him the phone, and he finds the app, and he finds what he wants on it. And how does a 2-year-old know how to circumnavigate?
I know, it is quite wonderful in some ways that they are intelligent enough to do that, but on the other hand, there are consequences.
Yeah, My sister's a lot more, because they're so much younger, she's a lot more clued up than I was 16 years ago. I'd argue that we just didn't know.
But Amber, can I just say that you should not be beating yourself up? It sounds to me like you have been and are a brilliant mum, and
well,
the
it's
whole
your fault
point,
that she's beating herself up.
Well, no, I hear that. I'm hearing that, and I really don't want you to, because the research does not say that screen time makes you autistic or borderline autistic. It is the case that, so many, as I said at the start, 70% of 2-year-olds have screen time every day. And so there is absolutely no clear evidence that you can make anyone be autistic at all. So you should not be feeling like that. That's definitely not what this research is showing. What it does show is that there is some disruption to sleep time and so on. Honestly, it sounds to me like you're a brilliant mum, so please don't beat yourself up over it. And actually, you do make the point very well that it's high time the big tech companies gave clarity to parents. As you said yourself, you didn't know. You thought an iPad would be a good thing and positive developmentally, and it was for the big tech companies to tell you otherwise. And but please don't beat yourself up over it.
I mean, they're not there to be socially responsible. You'd like to think that they would be, but their mission is to make a profit for their shareholders.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely true. And it's interesting. I got into a bit of a heated discussion with a tech bro.
Discussion?
Me, and
honestly, goodness.
Can you imagine? I was saying to him, this has to stop. It has to. Parents have to be given proper advice. You're not allowed to sort of say, oh yes, paracetamol suitable for all ages. You're not allowed to say that by law. And yet, where something can be extremely harmful like this, you're allowed to just vaguely assert that it's suitable for all ages. Parents do need to be told the truth. And what this tech guy was saying to me is that the only reason that they'll do that is if they think they're going to get sued. And I find that really deeply upsetting. That's why we wrote this letter to the big tech companies, urging them, and obviously it is for governments, for Ofcom, to actually take action, the BBFC, because the point about under twos is it is developmental. It's not that it's harmful content, it's that it's harmful developmentally. But please, Amber, again, don't feel that you somehow are responsible for your son's situation. That just isn't the case. That there is no evidence of that from this research.
I think I don't know that there isn't. I think the more and more that we learn about it, the more it explains a lot of our children's anxieties and social, problems. Do you not think? Does it not correlate? I mean, it does. Otherwise, you wouldn't be writing to the tech companies. And also, what can we do? What can we do as parents to make these tech companies take some responsibility? What can our government do to make these tech companies? Because it's a safeguarding issue.
Yeah.
You are causing developmental problems in a child's mental health. You know, and I think I work with children all the time, and I see it so much. And I can't tell the parents as a teacher, or even as a friend, really, I can't tell the teacher, well, if you will let your, whatever son, play on Minecraft, and the minute he gets home from school, of course he's not going to want to read.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I remember my daughter when she was studying for her degree. I went in to see if she was all right, and she said, "Can you take my phone, please? Because I've switched it off and put it on my pillow, but it's calling to me." And I was like, "Whoa, that's scary." But no, I do completely understand what you're saying, Amber. And of course, there is a correlation, and that's why we are so concerned about it and so determined to do something about it. But I'm just really making the simple point that the research does not suggest in any way that you are somehow responsible for your son's issues. So, as I say, it sounds to me like you're a brilliant mum. And the fact is, parents need to be given more advice, much more detailed advice from government, from schools, and big tech companies need to be forced
to take responsibility. You say schools, but of course this is preschool age. I mean,
yes.
Unless you've got other children in schools, why would the schools have any role to play? And I think for government it's also difficult. Where I think there is a role is, obviously in the coalition government, the Sure Start centres, a lot of those were closed down. It's in those kind of environments, that's where parents are more susceptible to get that kind of information.
Well, Iain, you might recall that was my mission in government, was to set up the Family Hubs and Start for Life programme. So we now have 950 family hubs across England that are exactly designed for pregnancy to the age of 2. And that's exactly the kind of place where parents can get information. But unfortunately, the research that we did showed that 85% of parents of new babies said they'd had no advice from a health visitor, a GP, or from anybody else, a midwife, from nobody about the importance of 0 screen time for under 2s. So there is a major significant issue. It requires that everybody works together on it. The government's provided advice that should be no screen time for under 2s, but the message needs to get out there to parents.
Right, Amber, thank you very much indeed. Great call. We'll come to more of your calls in a moment. And I think your former colleague Desmond Swain, he's got a bill going through Parliament.
Yes.
We'll talk about that as well. It's 9:31 on LBC. Let's get the latest news headlines from Matt Hewitt.
Holidaymakers have been warned not to travel to Bordeaux after a huge wildfire spread to the outskirts of the French city. Officials say the flames are contained but could flare up again, with fires also burning in the countryside around Madrid and Valencia in Spain. A funeral director from Hull's apologised to his victims as he arrived at court for a sentencing hearing. Robert Bush has admitted 67 charges, including giving bereaved families the wrong ashes. And Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine's relationship with the UK is stronger than ever. It's after the Prime Minister Andy Burnham hosted the Ukrainian president in Portsmouth. LBC weather. Heavy rain for Northern Ireland this evening, moving into southern and western Scotland tonight. Lighter rain for the rest of Scotland and then northern England and Wales. Lows of 9 to 15 degrees.
This is LBC.
Pick up more sun cream. Impromptu picnic. Late night cinema trip. Do more this summer. Hop on and off with the Weekend Hopper. Get unlimited weekend bus and tram journeys for £1.75 per day every Saturday and Sunday from the 25th of July. Plan your journey with the TfL Go app. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Offer valid from 4:30am on the 25th of July until 23:59 Monday the 31st of August. Always use the same card or device when touching in. For more information, search TfL Hopper.
Take summer by storm with Kia. Introducing the new Kia Sportage Storm, a unique limited edition of the UK's favourite family SUV. Test drive the award-winning Kia Sportage today and order yours by the 31st of August to get 5.9% APR representative and up to £3,000 PCP finance deposit contribution. Search Kia Take Summer by Storm. Kia. Movement that inspires. T's and C's apply. Kia Finance. To verify, visit kia.com/UK/favourite.
When you're smiling, the whole world smiles with you.
Life feels better with a smile. Banning Dental Group Clinics. Modern, comfortable and affordable dentistry for all. See online for our price match promise. Keep on smiling.
Keep on smiling. Keep on smiling. And the whole world smiles with you.
banningdental.co.uk.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
9:34, Dame Andrea Ledsom is with us for this hour. We're talking about screen time for 2-year-olds, which you may think is a bit of a niche subject, but I think it's actually really important because if your child gets into bad habits at a very early age, and I mean, if we were having this conversation 20 years ago, we would have been talking about teenage years, wouldn't we? I mean, about bad behaviour. But this, it affects a child's development in all sorts of different ways. And so the 1001 Days Foundation, which Andrea founded and chairs, they've commissioned this research which shows what the damaging impact that screen time can have on a child that's under 2 years old. So that's what we're talking about today. Love to hear from you if you've got some experience in this. We just heard from Amber in Bourne, who kind of blames herself for the way that her child has developed over the years because she did let her baby use a screen at that kind of age. So if you've got some experience of that, we'd love to hear from you. If you've got any advice yourself as well, we'd love to hear too. Now, Andrea, there's a bill going through Parliament.
Yes.
Sir Desmond Swayne, he's won first place in the House of Commons private members ballot, which, assuming the government agrees with what he wants to do, it almost guarantees that this bill will become law, maybe amended a bit. But what does it seek to do?
Well, essentially 3 things. The first one is it requires the Secretary of State to review the needs of parents and carers and their infants, and obviously prospective parents and carers, periodically. So that means ask them, what is it you need to make you a confident parent? The second thing is to commission services that address the needs of parents, carers and their babies. And the third thing is to report annually to Parliament on the outcomes for babies as a result. So if you like, first of all, ask them, second of all, deliver services, third of all, report on how it's going. And we're calling it the Babies Bill. It has its second reading on the 4th of September. So everyone listening, please write to your MP and urge them to back the Babies Bill. Desmond Swayne is a great old friend, and it was fantastic that he won the first place. As you say, with government backing, it will go through. And I can say that this does carry support across parties. Back in 2011, I set up the cross-party 1001 Critical Days Manifesto when I was first an MP with cross-party support. It's continued to be something that all parties have backed. And since the new Labour government, they have continued with the Best Start Family Hubs and Healthy Babies programme. So at the moment, it's got a fair wind.
And he would have had a lot of lobbying from other organisations wanting him to adopt their bill. What strong-arm tactics did you use?
Well, no, actually, genuinely, he is not someone who loves legislation. He feels government tends to change laws too often. But what he said is that this really was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And so he wanted to do something that could really make a positive difference in the world. Now, my foundation has a global mission to have a babies bill in every country, all countries around the world, much as the world did decide to legislate to educate children. And so what Desmond wanted to do was to create something that could make a real difference. And what we know is that every single baby, wherever it's born, in whatever circumstances, is at the same state of vulnerability and needs the same kind of loving interaction.
Right, Callum, who's 21, he's an education student in Scotland, has texted in. He says screens do become a dummy. We must not denigrate parents. Life is hard and busy. Screens become the go-to babysitter. We need children to be outdoors more often, in the open air, getting dirty and taking the appropriate level of safe risks, which is exactly what you and I will have done as children, wouldn't we? I mean, my mother would, even like at the age of 7 or 8, would say, OK, you've had your breakfast, off you go.
Yes.
And I'd come back at 5 o'clock and she wouldn't worry about where I'd been. I mean, I did grow up on a farm, so it was sort of, I suppose, a bit different to most people. But children are not getting that kind of upbringing now, are they? Because of the risks that, either perceived or real risks, that are out there that parents are rather afraid of.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is true. And also, I think the other thing that's changed is a lot of families now, both parents work. There's a lot of, sadly, single-parent families where it just makes it all rather more difficult to have somebody, keeping an eye out. And it does become quite easy and quite tempting to give children screen time.
Victoria says autism is a neurodevelopmental condition based on genetics. There definitely might be a link between the age at which it is diagnosed based on screen time. There is credible scientific evidence that giving screen time to very young children can delay them meeting their developmental milestones. But there is no credible evidence that this can make someone who has not been born neurodivergent can somehow change their genetics and brain structure and make them become autistic. Your last caller has really touched my heart. I think that was Amber that Victoria's referring to.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And just, again, there is no evidence that you can create autism in your baby by giving them screen time. So Amber shouldn't be thinking that.
No. Right, let's move on to a call. It's from Ellis, who's a first-time caller in Maidenhead. Hello, Ellis.
Hi. So basically, I think I don't feel like parents are really to blame here because, I mean, they're not neuropsychiatrists at the end of the day. I think it's on the government and doctors to be sort of informing parents and giving them the right information to make the decisions in an informed way. The other thing is...
Just before you go on to your second point, I mean, I'm slightly playing devil's advocate here, but you don't have to be Einstein as a parent to work out that giving a 2-year-old or an 18-month-old a screen for a prolonged bit of time, you don't have to be Einstein to think that is not a good idea.
Yeah, there is that. But there's also a lot of other factors like lack of access to childcare and the expense of childcare these days. There's a lot of single parents, like the last person, like you were just saying. And the second point I had was about autism. I agree, like under the age of 2, obviously it's a bad idea for them to use like devices, but as they get older, devices can actually be quite helpful in terms of like learning communications, because there's like communication apps and things that can help young children with autism and other neurodivergent conditions to communicate.
But under this new legislation, they're not going to be allowed to look at a lot of those sort of apps, are they?
That's what I mean. I think it might be for neurodivergent individuals. I think it might be an issue, but obviously they're a small. It's more sensible to not be allowed to give such a young child a device, because it definitely does something.
Alice, thank you. Do you want to comment on that?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right that it's very difficult for parents, and they need to be given the information, and that's really on those who provide those programmes that they claim to be suitable for all ages to make clear we do not mean under 2s. So 2+, don't have 0+ or all children or all ages or under 4s, which is what's happening at the moment, and they can do their bit to help. It would be very easy, the press of a switch.
And what about as children get older? I mean, are there guidelines that saying, right, a 4-year-old should have a maximum of 2 hours a day, an 8-year-old 3 hours? I mean, is there guidance from the government on that?
There is guidance now, which has recently been published on what's suitable for older children. And as we know, the whole world is having a kind of mass hysteria about social media, and absolutely rightly. And it's totally detrimental impact on teenagers and on mental health and so on. So there's various different aspects to this. But the reality is, over the last 20 years, we've been doing a whole global experiment with no control group. So we're only now really finding out what this has done to children.
I saw this at first hand recently, where a friend of mine had to go away and said, can you look after my 9 or 10-year-old for, I think it was like 2.5 days. If it had been
brave, Ian.
Well, no, if it had just been me, I'd have said no. But my partner is more child-friendly than I am.
Lots of sweets.
But no, it was fascinating to watch, because he had this iPad and a games console, and literally he would spend all day on it. And I would sort of say from time to time, well, do you not want to do something else? Oh, no, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I can see that you love it. And then another friend of ours came, Jenny, who decided that she would teach him to cook. And he absolutely loved it. So he went for several hours without looking at a screen.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's a great thing. Wouldn't it be good if he did that a little bit more often, I thought to myself.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm addicted to my screen myself, but I mean, it's not going to affect my developmental health, but it does in children that age.
It really does. And, you know, the thing is, as we've all said, it's not fair to kind of guilt trip parents. It's tough enough raising children as it is, but you can ring the changes. You can say, right, let's go outside and kick a football, or, off you go. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, you're talking about when you were a kid, I would always be, I'm bored. And my mum would say, go outside, go outside. It was just like, that was the panacea for I'm bored.
I bet you were right tomboy as a child, weren't you?
Yes.
Andy from Halifax says, I'm a head teacher of a small village primary school. The amount of home visits we do where parents are thrilled to inform us that their child can use an iPad or has favourite YouTube videos and channels is staggering. Children are coming into school with a lack of ability to take turns, identify colours, the basics that historically we took for granted. I mean, that is horrific, isn't it?
It really is. And I mean, again, going back to under twos, some of the findings from the research that we carried out shows that children have delayed speech. They have delayed cognition, i.e. ability to play. And these are very much more prevalent in babies who have significant amounts of screen time. So there's no doubt that it is a bad idea to give your under twos a lot of screen time.
So I was going to say nursery schools should have a role here, but of course 2-year-olds aren't in nursery schools, are they?
Well, actually, the last government that I was a part of did introduce nurseries for 9-month-olds if both parents were going back to work, or if it was one parent going back to work. And my concern about that actually is that for nurseries, very often they don't necessarily have the training on under twos themselves. I mean, a lot do, but not all of them. And so actually, if you're responsible for a baby of 9 months up to age of 2 for long periods of time, then actually you need to understand how to develop their neural connections. These are developmental issues. They're not just about interacting and stimulating the games and so on. It's actually about that one-to-one time that's so crucial.
Right, more calls to come. It's 9:47.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
Andy Burnham's plan to fix the broken care system could involve everybody having to pay 10% inheritance tax. Is that a cost you're willing to bear? Plus, are the Green Party increasingly dangerous?
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
When your husband's got his heart set on making the doer-upper open plan, enjoy every thudding second of it.
Yes!
Be a step ahead with Barclays Premier, with our exclusive mortgage rates. Barclays, backing your future. Eligibility criteria apply. All mortgages are subject to application, financial circumstances and borrowing history. T's and C's apply. New Barclays mortgage applications only.
The Big Arch just got bacon. More smokiness, more crispiness, more deliciousness. With juicy beef, cheddar cheese and that Big Arch sauce. Now topped with crispy bacon. The Big Arch just got bacon.
Until the 28th of September 2026. Served from 11 a.m. Subject to availability.
Gals, guys, get this. Primark's dropped their prices on hundreds of our favourites, like pure cotton PJs and men's cosy hoodies from £7, or women's cotton-rich jeans from £9, and kids' extra comfy joggers just £3.50. There's only one word for that. Go on, show us how it's done. Iconic! Couldn't have put it better myself. Iconic value like never before at Primark.
Hello, beautiful people! Get ready to rock with a new Volkswagen T-Roc. Until the 3rd of August, get an extra £1,200 off the T-Roc, plus 0% APR when bought on finance. Test drive the T-Roc today and see why it won What Car's Best Small SUV Award.
18 plus from stock only. Registered by 30th of September with Solutions PCP. Max 24-month term. Indemnities may be required. Volkswagen Finance.
Iain Dale on LBC.
9:49, Dame Andrea Leadsom is with me talking about her initiative through the 101 Days Foundation. 1001. Yeah. 101 will be a bit restrictive,
Dalmatians.
wouldn't it? Yeah, right.
Another lovely film.
But you're going global.
Yes. It always was a global mission. So the Foundation's key role is to persuade all governments around the world to start to focus properly on the science that we've had for 70 years about the development of the human mind, and how if you support parents to give their babies the best start in life, and by that I mean give them information largely, but also services, then you would actually have a much healthier and happier society. And perhaps the birth rate would rise, and perhaps you'd have some children going to school who are school ready, and then they'd go on to be economically viable adults who would become good parents themselves. It's literally a virtuous cycle that you could generate by supporting parents better in pregnancy to age 2. So what we're doing as part of the Foundation is we're establishing a global institute for the 1001 Critical Days, which we're planning to base in Washington, D.C., and that is going to gather together. It's going to be a virtual library of all of the world's research into pregnancy to age 2. There's amazing stuff coming out of the Philippines, the Punjab, Australia, you name it, Venezuela. So many countries doing such incredible work. And we're going to turn that into a virtual library. But really importantly, we're going to turn that research into policy briefs and press releases and infographics that policymakers and parents and early years professionals can actually read and understand and get something from.
So what's the most unexpected country that you've had communication from about the work that you're doing?
Well, do you know, I haven't had communication from them yet, but I do see that the Philippines has a 1001 days bill. So it may be, I thought our babies bill would be the first in the world. It may be that the Philippines already has one, and we're making contact with the Philippines government to find out exactly what generated that. So that was amazing. But then also, I guess I would say that some of the things I've learnt, which are quite amazing, is that in Norway, you now only get 3 days in hospital after you've had a baby, and all the mums and dads out there will be just like groaning inwardly, because of course in England you get about 4 hours if you're lucky.
Well, that's a whole other subject.
Yes,
but we're not going to talk about that because we've got Sarah, who's a first-time caller on the line. Sarah is in Haringey. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, Ian. It's
Hi.
quite exciting.
Well, but we're excited that you're excited.
Oh, really? I think I could talk about this on so many levels. So I'm the mum of a 2 and a 4-year-old. Well, watch a couple of hours of telly a day, I'm sure, and I watch it with them. I'm autistic with ADHD. I also volunteer at a local bookshop running an event where we all read, and I read with them. And in his preschool report, it said, "What an imaginative reader!" They're really, they happen to be very chatty. My 2-year-old could talk in full sentences, and I think I was upset with Dame Ledson's introduction, because she said traits of autism. I understand why that first caller called in, because either you're saying it causes autism, or I would think that people who have undiagnosed autism in children are not helped, and autistic parents might rely more on TV than others, and one should maybe help rather than sort of shame that situation. So I don't know whether the comment was about the overdiagnosis of autism and ADHD, and maybe this is what it's saying, these are things that happen to be autistic, and we're seeing it in these people, whether it's autistic or not. And I think also she was conflating the idea of screens. The way I watch a movie with my kids, and I whoop and I cheer and all that sort of thing, is different, I would think, to the person who hands the kid the YouTube thing to go to sleep with. And you're conflating everything. Why not be clear?
Right, Andrea Ledson, defend yourself.
Yes. I've not read the report, but that was a very tricky thing. That was very clickbaity. I'm sorry, it was.
Sorry. Oh, well, I'm very sorry that's how you heard it. I actually was.
Well, the first caller heard it that way too, and I think other people did as well.
Yes. Okay. Well. All I can say is I tried very hard to make clear that whilst
don't
parents...
use the word autism or explain why you're using it. Just say that they don't have...
Okay, well, let Andrea have her say, Sarah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think I totally understand where you're coming from, and I think I've said, many times now that there's no way that there's evidence that screen time for under 2s causes autism. That is not the case. And I was also very careful in saying that some autism-like behaviour is seen in babies that have excessive amounts of screen time, but there isn't a causal link. There is a potential association. But actually, just to push back at you gently, what I understand from parents, that I've talked to so many parents and carers through the Family Hubs and Start for Life programme, and what they have always said to me is they need information. Parents and carers feel that they do not get enough information, and that leaves them feeling lacking in confidence as parents. And so I completely understand that people hear different things, but nevertheless, the message I'm trying to get clearly across is that screen time for under 2s should be minimal. As you say, you watch a TV programme with your children, that's then not the same as screen time at all.
An hour or two.
Sorry.
It isn't so minimal necessarily, but I think there needs to be nuance. When you talk to a new mum, and when people say screen time is all bad, I had so many people coming at me with opinion versus as a fact. And I think it's important for people to be presented with facts. Information is really important. And you can see already that you've got people reeling and thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know how to cope. It's sort of like, what are you doing with that information?
Okay.
And if you disseminate it more.
All right, Sarah, I've only got 2 minutes left in the programme, so
Okay.
I do want to fit in somebody else. Great call. Thank you very much. Catherine's in Pontefract. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my call.
What would you like to say?
Well, I'm a childminder. I've done it for many years, and I don't think there's any place for children under 5, to be perfectly honest, for any devices at all. I think these get forced on them by the parents. In my setting, they don't have anything like that, just toys, books, learning, tools, pots and pans. They play with boxes. I take them out every single day into nature, to parks, to zoos, petting zoos, and they just love it. They don't need these devices. And what I've seen, 'cause I'm a lot older now, my children are grown up, and what I've seen with people who they give these to the children, their attention span is so short, and it's like instant gratification. You're just hitting their little brains all the time. And children need to learn to sit in a little bit of discomfort, because life is not always instant gratification. They've no patience. They can't wait for anything. They want it all the time. And I have really good parents who are on board, and we chat about the children's progression, and they don't give them devices either. And they're the most well-behaved children, because they're getting stimulation from conversation. They're learning to socialise. They make eye contact, and you can see that. I recently had my Ofsted report, which is very good, and she remarks that the relationships with the children were excellent, because I speak to them, and the parents do, and they're interacting with them. They don't need something in the hand constantly.
Wise words, Catherine. We have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Final word from you, Andrea, very quickly.
Well, I think you sound like an amazing childminder. And thank you very much for having me on. I think all of this conversation just shows how desperately parents need clear information and guidance, and also that tech companies need to play their part.
Final word from Welsh Paul of Chalfont St Peter. Could I suggest that you mention to listeners how lovely it is reading Rudyard Kipling's Just So stories to young children? I particularly love The Elephant's Child. Good advice there from Paul. Andrea, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme. Thanks for all of your calls and messages this evening. I'll be back tomorrow from 7. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's Richard Spur, but right now, it's Ben Kentish.
Ian, thank you very much indeed. Hello there. A very, very good evening. Welcome to Late Nights with Ben Kentish here on LBC. Tonight,
whatever political capital I have, I will put in